you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bristol Town Council meeting of May 17th. If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are you a bit warm? Yes, so are we. So we're going to move this right along, but we're going to start off with actually a presentation, and a really good presentation. This is going to be from the East Bay Tobacco Youth Council, and the students are here to give us a 6-minute presentation, and we're looking forward to it. Come on up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Morgan Kane. I'm a student at Mount Hope High School. I'm actually a senior this year and will be graduating in June.
Hi, I'm Sean Palumbo. I'm a freshman at Mount Hope High School and not graduating this year.
Welcome to both of you.
All right. So now, due to the interest of time, we had a video prepared, but we're just gonna go over it. It's really good, but if you want, you can actually visit our website to go see it.
So we'll kind of start out by introducing who we are. So we are the East Bay Tobacco Youth Council. We're an organization made up of 10 students from across the East Bay, so including East Providence, Barrington, Bristol, and Warren. So me and Sean are from Bristol, and then we have Emily here today. She's running the projector. She's from Warren, and her sister Katie as well, who's also from Warren. So one of my personal favorite things that we've done this year, or kind of in our campaign, was actually at the concert series last year. We were actually able to pass out seat cushions to all the people that have come to that concert with kind of our message on them.
And then also to add on, out of the list of many things that we have done since I have joined, the media inserts, where we got to choose a topic, and then find out facts, and then put it out into the community in our newspapers and write about it. That's what I enjoyed the most. Oh, it's over here. Okay. So we're here because we care that 480,000 deaths occur, or 1 out of every 5 deaths occur from tobacco use.
So we also care because preventing tobacco use among youth is critical to ending the tobacco epidemic in the United States. Tobacco use is started and established primarily during adolescence.
So now, other than just tobacco use, we also have focused on electronic nicotine delivery systems, also known as e-cigarettes. So now, nearly 3 million U.S. middle school and high school students were past 30 days e-cigarette smokers back in 2015, and some e-cig vapors contain known I don't know how to pronounce it, carcinogenic, toxic chemicals such as like formaldehyde and acetaldehyde. Can't pronounce it. And we also, so now, like at our schools, we do see like e-cigarette use in like our bathrooms outside of the schools, just kind of around the campus sometimes.
So in February of last year, we were actually all trained about how to collect this STARS data. So what STARS stands for is Standardized Tobacco Assessment for Retail Settings. So each of us was assigned a specific area in the East Bay community, and we were able to fill out specific surveys that were used to collect specific data points about various places and retail places of business throughout the East Bay. So we found that in Bristol, actually, flavored e-cigarettes were sold at 73% of the stores that had sold tobacco in Bristol. So right now we're going to do a little bit of a show and tell. So we have some examples of things being sold in our stores that we want to show you. So each of the products is a flavored product, so they're really targeted towards the use of they're really targeted towards the youth population. So when we pass out these products, really compare and see how they are to what they're supposed to represent as well. I'll do two.
They smell almost exactly like this.
So what they're showing us is that there's e-cigarette liquid in here, and then there's bubble gum, and the e-cigarettes smell exactly like the bubble gum. I can't say that sounds very good to me, but I can understand what they're marketing on.
Also, what else we have brought up there is a blue e-cigarette and a black pencil, just to show them kind of the close resemblance to what each of them could see and the misconceptions that you can get from the two.
You want to show that to everybody? You want to show that to everybody? So I don't know if you can see this out there. This is not a pencil. This is an e-cigarette. That's a pencil. This is a pen. No, this is an e-cigarette, and the idea behind it is that it looks innocuous, but obviously it's not. So.
So the cat just fits. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
There, your microphone's off.
Is that it?
You can actually,
Why don't you go up to the microphone?
you can't be so music, right?
So the question was, can kids buy these? And these meaning e-cigarettes.
So you can't actually go into a store and buy an e-cigarette, but there's definitely other ways of getting them through however you need. If you actually wanted one, it would not be impossible in our present society today. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so now we also know that there are a lot of effective policies that will prevent the youth from using these, but we are just also going to bring up some examples from local policy to at the state level. So now, one of the examples is that Senator Coyne has been sponsoring the legislation to move tobacco purchasing from 18 years old to 21 years old, and then as a local level example would be that in Central Falls they have already enacted this ordinance in their town.
So what are the communities around Rhode Island doing about this problem? There are a lot of different communities where policies already exist. So basically, a local retail license would allow a community to collect annual fees from all of these retailers that are selling tobacco products within our areas. And you could also place restrictions on how these products are sold and regulated. So different communities, you can see here on the PowerPoint, different communities that actually have these kinds of laws in place. And if you look, this same list is also in your packet, which is in the blue folder. So the blue folder has a lot of different materials that we've worked with over the past year. I think there's a STARS data sheet about Bristol for exact data points, and as well as a copy of our news insert as well that Sean had talked about before.
So now just another why we're here about this is because that about $1 million is spent every hour just to advertise these cigarettes, and as you can see before, it is also kind of appealing to the youth. So, and then 90% of the adult smokers also started as adolescents, and then 1,500 kids every day become daily smokers, and 1 out of 3 youth smokers will die prematurely. So that's it.
So to go off what Sean said about the 1,500 kids every day becoming daily smokers, not even that many kids go to Mount Hope High School here in Bristol, to kind of put that into perspective for you. So imagine more than our entire high school every day becoming a daily worth of kids becoming a daily smoker every day across the U.S. So we thank you for this opportunity to come and talk to you. We would like for anyone to come and join us at our meetings and to kind of help us with this problem as well.
So if somebody wanted to join you at your meetings, how would they do that?
So we actually have a meeting on Sunday. You could actually contact, here we have Maria Orsini, Barbara Palumbo. Definitely after the meeting, after this. Okay. So our meeting is on Sunday at 4 o'clock at the Barrington Town Hall. And you could definitely contact one of our supervisors or about more information, for more information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Excellent job.
Nice job.
And good luck on your graduation.
Our clerk was pushed out of the way for a moment so they could run the presentation.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, the first item on this evening's agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is submission of minutes of previous meetings, items A1 and A2.
Motion to approve submission of minutes of previous meeting?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is an advertised public hearing. This is a public hearing to consider ordinance 2017-04. This is an amendment to the town code to add certain definitions to the section on boats, docks, and waterways. This would be to add or rather amend the definitions of the term resident, non-resident, and commercial.
Mr. Solicitor, I know that I'd ask you if you could just take a moment because there are three very like ordinances here just so we can speak about this holistically.
Put it all in context
Thank
for you. So there are three ordinances, C1, C2, and C3. It's the public hearing is really related to C1. And the council has had several meetings and discussions with regard to definitions of various entities. When we started looking at the definitions section of this ordinance, we realized that there were a number of areas that needed to be updated to clarify exactly what applies to who. The first round of those definitions are those that are in the public hearing this evening. Now, you have to have this public hearing. You have to open this public hearing because more than 20 residents asked you to do that. However, since that hearing took place, the first reading on that ordinance took place, based on discussion from the council, there was another definition that the council was looking for, specifically a definition related to nonprofit sailing schools. That was not in the first set of definitions, which is in the public hearing. So what we did is in C2, we added a definition for nonprofit sailing schools all by itself. But in C3, which is the one that ultimately I think makes the most sense for the town from my perspective as solicitor, C3 includes all the definitions that are part of your public hearing, plus adds in the definition for the nonprofit sailing school. So you will open your public hearing, you will discuss B1, but ultimately I think if we're going to go in the direction I think you want to go to, it's really C3 that we want to address ultimately. The other thing that I think is very important to understand is that none of these ordinances, including the public hearing, address fees. So these are just definitions. You have a separate resolution on fees for each of the categories, whether they're commercial, resident, and perhaps even at some future point nonprofit sailing school, but fees are not part of these ordinances or the discussion this evening.
Thank you. So I'm going to open up the public hearing. and this is, we're speaking of C1. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Okay. Is there anyone here to speak against? Is there anyone here to speak against? Is there anyone here to speak against?
Motion to move the close the public hearing.
Second?
There's a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
At this point, my advice would be a motion not to adopt this because it doesn't have that other language that you're looking for.
So I'll make the motion not to adopt C1.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So do we need to cover C2, or can we combine as a discussion point? Or
So for both C2 and C3, they're before you this evening merely for introduction, and then you would have a second reading at your next meeting. Assuming you'd like to see all the definitions included, which is what I'm recommending, I would recommend not introducing C2, but a positive motion to introduce C3. And you can do that together if you'd like.
So how do we get rid of C2 procedurally wise?
You can vote to reject.
Yeah, just reject.
Okay. So with that, I make a motion to reject C2.
Second?
And
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
and also make a motion that C3 it constitutes the first reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
The next item is something that the council does every year, is to set the allowable limit of peddlers' licenses for the year. I believe there are currently three, and the outside limit is 10.
Motion to keep the hawkers and peddlers license at 10.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to keep the existing number of 10. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the petition of Fernando Brum for St. Elizabeth's Church Holy Trinity Committee. Request council consideration for one-day dancing and entertainment license for June 9th, 10th, and 11th. You have recommendations from the town administrator and fire and police chiefs to approve with certain conditions.
Upon all the approvals and conditions and recommendations of the departments, make a motion to grant the one-day dance and entertainment license for the specified dates and times.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the petition of John Ferreira for Thames Hospitality LLC, doing business as Dirty Water Pub, 198 Thames Street. Request council consideration for the transfer of their Class BV intoxicating beverage license to Maria Terra for East Bay Enterprises LLC, hopefully doing business as Guillory's Tap House. This is to call for a public hearing at your next meeting, June 7th.
Motion to call for a public hearing on June 7th.
Second?
There's a motion and a second to call for a public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
The next item is item E1. This is the dog kennel license renewals for 2017, 2018. This is continued from your last meeting. You have a, this is a, the petition for renewal and request for expansion of licenses provided by the current licensee, and you also have a late item which speaks to a certain consent order that perhaps the solicitor would like to share.
Hey, Mike, could
with
you elaborate on that late item, E1B?
Absolutely. All pause in was subject to violation notices from the Department of Environmental Management with regard to certain things going on at the facility. Just yesterday, a consent agreement was entered into, which basically allows all paws in to continue to do business as long as they abide by all of the many conditions that are set forth in the consent agreement that's in front of you. And if they don't, it triggers hearings and fines, etc. I would note that part of that consent agreement includes a list of restrictions that have been recommended by our Animal Control Officer, Diane Jabri, with regard to the operation of the kennel, which is actually what is in front of you this evening. I will note that the first of those restrictions is to not house more than 10 dogs at the facility. Now, you have two things before you this evening. You have both a request for renewal of the kennel license, which had been continued pending this consent decree, which we now have, and at the same time, they're asking for an expansion from 10 to, I guess, 15 or more dogs. I don't know if anyone's here present on their behalf this evening. I will just make one final comment that given the fact that this consent decree was just entered into, and given the fact that as part of that consent decree there was a 10-dog limit placed on it, that you might want to consider renewing the license this evening so that they can operate with the 10 dogs, see how this plays out over the next 30 or 45 days, and then perhaps the applicant or the council, if it desires, can consider the request to expand the number of dogs. So those are my thoughts, and I'll be available for questions as we go through the process.
Hi.
Welcome again. I'm going to ask my counsel first if they have any questions or comments they'd like to make first, but certainly we'd like to hear from you, of course. Colleagues?
Well, I'm just glad that we got at least some movement on this to help you out, maybe, and then we'll hear of the magnitude of how much this will play out. So,
Maybe I can start off with a motion. If I could, I'd like to start off with a motion to grant the license to all paws in for a 10-dog license, the same license that was previously issued by the town of Bristol.
I'll second that motion, but
So we have a motion and a second, so discussion.
I also think we should do the review in 45 days to see, where they are, how they're, if they're holding to all compliances, and maybe we could, from there, look at possibly expanding that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think it's important that we just got this tonight, so we haven't even had a chance to look at it or to read it. So, I mean, if we could put that off to maybe a July meeting might be helpful. Once you can, but you'll still be open. You'll be back
The
open.
problem with that is, as you can see, I have more than 10 customers here. The reason I'm in this mess is because, I didn't know that I was limited to 10. And, the business grew, as businesses you should want to grow. But once I was notified that this was a problem, any problem that I was notified of, I rectified immediately. When the state came, it wasn't because I didn't have fire extinguishers or fire alarms or anything like that, because I have all that. It was logs and paint the floor and change 2 lights. There had been other regulations that had been updated last June that I was unaware of. You can't put a crate on a crate, just things like that. And that was all taken care of within like 10 days. It's been now almost 7 months since this whole thing started. And they didn't come because of a complaint of my business. No one's ever, come up to me and complained of the noise or the amount of dogs or anything like that. So the problem with waiting and my customers have been more than customers. They're like family, I'll be honest with you. They are family. And, so anyway, they're like family, and they are family. And so to make them lay in limbo is just, and that's what it is. It's like when your parents have a snow day and they don't know what to do with the kids that day. The grandma, can she watch the kids or whatever? And that's what's happening with these people. They've been on hold now for 3 weeks, and it's just not fair to them. and it doesn't even have anything to do with me. 10 dogs, sure, that'd be a walk in the park for me, 10 dogs. But it's not fair to my customers who have been with me for 9 years, going on my 10th year, and not knowing, am I going to be able to have my dogs there or not? Where am I putting them tomorrow when I go to work? A lot of these dogs, they'd stay home 9 hours a day if it wasn't for my daycare. And my prices are the cheapest, and I do that because I can. I don't have to rent a place. I'm on my own property, so I give them a very, very good deal. And some of these people have 2 and 3 dogs apiece. And so for them to go somewhere else, it would be financially a hardship for them. So to make me wait, I understand you didn't get to read things and whatnot, but it's just, if it's just, I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Can I just ask you though, why did you sign the consent decree though, right?
I signed, if I didn't
put the
sign
limits
that,
in.
which it didn't have, the state had nothing to do with amount of dogs.
No, that was us when we.
Yes,
we
that was you
approved it.
guys.
Right.
And I had no choice but to sign it whether I agreed with it or not, or else this meeting wouldn't have been happening tonight, because I wouldn't have been able to even renew my license without signing off, as Diane Gabri made that clear 3 weeks ago.
I do want to point out, you were represented by counsel at this hearing. Your lawyer also signed it, so I assume he explained to you the significance of the agreement.
Yes.
Okay.
Chief,
Yes.
I'm sorry, is Diane here this evening?
Oh, she is.
I believe she is? Yes. Okay. Well, just one moment, Diane. I don't know if the council had any questions for you. So the way that we're looking at this, as Councilman Perella just mentioned, is that we just received this paperwork. More importantly, you've heard, actually you have a motion and a second to approve the dog license, so I think there's an overwhelming want to move forward. I also hear an overwhelming want from the police department at large to move forward with this as long as everything is followed. We have a great willingness. Vice Chair Sweeney said that let's look at this at 45 days. I think that's very appropriate, meaning not wait for 60. But there's a lot of things in here that say specifically you must follow. They look like they're straightforward, and at a very cursory glance at it. We want you to succeed. But if there were issues on the state that they said that we couldn't renew your license, then we want to make sure that you are compliant with those. And once you are, we want to take that next step. So we're supportive of it, but we also need to follow the guidelines here. If there was an issue, there was an issue strong enough that they did not want us to renew your license. So, as I said,
Well, actually...
but let me just finish on that. You can hear that we're supportive, and I include the police department with that. We want to move forward with this. But we need a time to prove that everything's okay with it. Does that make sense? I know you don't like that. I understand.
No, it doesn't. It
I
makes
know.
sense, but the state never said they weren't going to give me my license. I had appealed.
You're absolutely
an
right, because
amount.
that's us, but we couldn't do it without their okay. Let's
Right.
put it that way. That we need their sign-off. Mr.
Correct.
Solicitor, am I correct with that?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And I think this council takes it into account, the success of your business for many years, no violations. You have a great business over the years. But I think with this consent agreement, something else transpired, and you have to understand our position, and we feel for everybody. But, the original vote by the council that was granted to you when you started your business had those limits. So that's what transpired. I know you added customers, but I think this is actually an opportunity to come in front of the council so we can have that candid, and I think this council is very supportive of your business, to have that conversation on the review to expand the business and the needs you're going to need going forward, and have it legal versus what was in existence.
We lean heavily on our department heads for recommendations. We ultimately make the decision, but we take their recommendations very seriously. And if the recommendation is to
Their
take
recommendations are basic logs. They're very into logs. Yes. my daughter-
Can I just ask our solicitor a question? And that is, if and when we agree to additional dogs, does that have to go back to
No, it
DEM
doesn't.
for their review?
That is totally within your volition,
Okay.
so it would not have to go back.
Did you understand that, saying that if, when we review this, it doesn't require any state input at that point in time?
The thing, too, is...
Could you please, if you could state your name for the record?
Oh, yes. My name's Katerina Oliva. I'm Donna's daughter.
Welcome.
Thank you. I would just like to preface a little bit. We love Bristol. I think small communities need small businesses. They help any community thrive. And she has had, thank God, knock on wood, no complaints, no noise violations, nothing in almost a decade, you know? And this did happen in November, and everything was rectified in the 2 weeks that Dr. Scott Marshall gave us. And Diane Gabri did come to the facility on February 3rd, and she agreed everything was in compliance. And we've been in compliance since the 2-week period that we had in November. We've been dealing with this for a long time through the death of my grandmother and through...
Sorry.
Thank you. A lot of hardships, and I've seen, the toll that it's taken on my mom. Because before, she was a nurse for decades, and she always wanted to help animals as well. And so being able to have a daycare and watch people's companions and help them out by taking care of their dogs is like a dream job. She loved it. And I completely get that you want to look everything over. We totally understand, and we really genuinely appreciate the support from everybody. Our thing is, we know no dogs before 7 a.m., no dogs after 8 p.m. We agree. We agree that you need to have rabies certificates. You have to have a log of the dogs and their license numbers. The only thing we just wanted to address was just an expansion on the animals. That's it. We agree with what was on there. If you want to do routine inspections, of course. Most businesses, you have to have inspections in general, and we know there have to be guidelines, whether it's a boutique, a bar, there has to be rules and regulations to keep the consumer safe. We just want an expansion. She has the ability to do it, she has the customers, and like she said, it'll be a financial burden on these people who, she's half of what most places are, and she was only like the second doggy daycare in Bristol. Her grandfather, not on a tangent, but her grandfather built most of Bristol. Some of the streets are named after her, siblings. We've been in this community for so long. I've lived here my whole life, gone to school here. So, everything we agree, it's just extra dogs. That's it. Just so she can keep her people financially safe and not give them that burden. She's really just doing it for them. We agree that things that need to be rectified have been, and I know that you would like to look over things, but I just wanted to stand up here and just say on behalf of her that Diane Gabri came and approved it. The state has come. We've been in compliance since that mid to late November, and we just have been showing that we can stay in compliance, and we just need the extra dogs.
I just want to say I applaud you for moving quickly and getting your house in order, so to speak. How many dogs are you looking for if we consider expansion down the line?
We would like 15 or 20 dogs instead of 10.
Another 15?
So we can have 10 now. We would like to be able to have a limit of 20.
An extra 20?
Yeah, an extra 10.
A total of 20.
A total of 20, right. Yep.
Okay, yep.
So how many did you have when this whole problem came up that it ended up going to DEM?
Well,
It was about 20, 25, right?
yeah, it was probably about
20, 25.
Well, there was.
If you're going to speak,
daycare-
we need you to come up to the
There
microphone.
was
Thank
daycare,
you.
boarding, and I also had some foster dogs that were boarding until after the holidays. So the total was 33. A quiet 33. A very well-behaved 33.
I feel disclaimers happening there. So.
23 dogs.
I'm wondering if, are the facility requirements the same for caring for dogs overnight as a typical kennel would, as they are for just daycare or as they are for fostering? Are the facility requirements the same, or so for example, do you need an individual kennel for each dog?
They wouldn't obviously.
No, for daycare you don't.
Okay.
You don't need any kennels for daycare.
So with the license for 15 or 20 dogs, would you need 15 or 20 kennels?
For overnight, no. I would be fine with 10 overnight. If you wanted to say, okay, you cannot have more than 10 overnight, I would be like, not a problem, because that's a lot of work when you have more than 10 dogs staying overnight. It's just the daycare dogs. And basically, you really, a lot of places don't even have licenses that take dogs out to, I could name a few, but I'm not naming anybody. But anyway, they take dogs out to fields, or they take dogs out to their father's farm and they let them run. And that's not considered boarding or kennel, and they don't, it's just playtime or play something they call it.
So for clarification, I'm wondering, does the terms of a license that the town issues require that individual kennels be provided for each dog to meet that requirement?
Maybe Diane Jabri can answer that specific question, but I will note the conditions that were approved, that there would be no more than 10 dogs on the property.
So, Mike, are you saying that even if we wanted to, it would make the agreement void or null and void? I don't know how to... There's a big question about that? Is that what you're saying?
We have no ordinance
Well,
for
that was what I just asked.
dog daycare. We don't, and I'm not aware of other municipalities that have that. And frankly, I think it would be an administrative nightmare to try to start, deciding who's there for daycare, who's there overnight, et cetera. I don't know the answer to the question, though, as to whether or not for doggy daycare, if a kennel or a space is required. And again, maybe the department can answer that.
Where do you put the dogs?
Councilman,
Like, where do they sleep? I'm sorry, where do they take, where do the dogs,
They have kennels. They have kennels on the facility.
so are
I figured I was so
are they-
loud, I don't need this.
is there a kennel there?
When they
and it's
sleep
assigned to
overnight.
them? No, I'm talking about the doggy daycare.
Daycare, it does not require.
So where do they hang
They
out?
are
like,
called
when they're-
cage-free. They're called cage-free.
You have, like, a big room?
And you don't, yeah.
It's a run outside.
Well, they have outside. It's all fenced in. They play out there if it's yucky weather. I also have indoor. I also have a canopy. They don't have... I try very hard not to put them in kennels and crates during the day. I get some that get a little cranky and they need a nap, or older dogs that, tire out and want to go in for a bit. But basically, the reason I started this was I want the dogs to be dogs. Go outside, play, swim in the pool, the doggy pools, have a good time, not be in a crate or a cage all day.
So when you applied to us, though, you applied for a kennel, like for overnight kennel? Is that
Yes, when I applied, I'll be honest with you, I was a rookie and I was green and I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I was a nurse for decades and decades. We won't say how many decades, but many.
You're disclaiming again.
Yes, I am. Very good. So anyway, I really didn't even know I needed a kennel license. And a matter of fact, I did get my town kennel license without my state kennel license because I was unaware of it. And one day, Dr. Scott Marshall was just driving by. I had already been open 3 years. And he pulled in and he was like, "You don't have a state license." And I was like, "I didn't know I was supposed to." Diane Gabri actually was supposed to tell me I needed that, but she didn't. But anyway, and I ended up getting it then, 2011. So I was just green and a rookie and had no clue what I was doing.
So what we should do, let's bring this back in again.
Yes.
Where we are right now is we have a consent agreement in front of us which states that there can be no more than 10 dogs. There's a review time. It's not a stated review time, but there's a...
Well,
Please.
actually, they're under review between now and June of 2018. It's quite a long period.
But the state didn't give me the 10-dog limit.
Now, the town, that is correct. It's the town's kennel license that's the 10-dog limit. That is correct.
But
They incorporated the town.
Yeah,
what
it's incorporated.
But I want to
Exactly.
stop right here and say that I think that's what's in front of us. So what we need to do at this moment is say, when do we want to review this? Do we want to review this at our next meeting and add numbers to it? Do we want to add it? Do we want to look at it 2 meetings out? And this is where I would lean to Diane and say, what's a reasonable amount of time? Our next meeting is in 3 weeks?
June 7th, and
that-
then the next meeting after that's July 5th.
Okay.
I just had one question. I'm sorry to interject. I know previously I've heard other towns, other states, that they'll do a temporary agreement. So if you want to do a temporary 20 total, 10 extra for the kennel, because it's not we want 20 dogs sleeping over. It's just tough if you say 10 and then you have 3 sleeping over. They go home one day and then they're taking up a spot of a dog who could be in daycare. So just to see if we could do until, if we have to have a meeting or whatever, an extra 10 dogs totaling 20 just for like a temporary.
See, I don't think there's an issue with this council's willingness to be
Right.
flexible. I don't believe we have that flexibility.
Okay.
I believe this agreement, and please correct me if I'm wrong.
You're correct in your
Okay.
interpretation.
I don't believe we don't. I believe we have zero flexibility for this evening. We do have a motion and a second to approve the license. Good news,
Right.
right? Following this consent agreement. I think the question to this council is, do we want to look at this at our next meeting, or do we want to look at this at the July 5th meeting? Those are our scheduled
I would say the
meetings.
next
I would say
meeting.
the next meeting, because people are going to start going on vacation in July, and they're going to need a place. Like, what I think is somewhat of, like, important for us to think about is the fact that we allowed you the limit of the 10 dogs, but you applied for a kennel license, and then we don't have anything officially on the books for doggy daycare. So in a way, like, if you're good with keeping that limit on the amount of dogs that stay over, then, you know, we have to figure out just legally if we can do that, right? But you said, when I asked you, you said we could. Now you're saying we don't know if we can, right?
No.
two different things
It's,
then.
if you were to come back on June 7th,
Yeah.
you could do something like this. You could say, limit 10 dogs overnight
Right.
and no more than 10 additional dogs during the day.
Right.
You can do something like that.
Right.
So-
So we can do that. So that's,
If in fact we can do that, what we're looking for when you come back is obviously, and so are you, a nice clean record. Everything comes back, we get a thumbs up saying, yeah, there's been no issues, there's no concerns, let's move forward. That's what we're looking for. So, and again,
Meanwhile, we're going to tell them.
So just to clarify, Mr. Solicitor, what is the difference between next council meeting and this council meeting enabling us to add those 10 daycare dogs?
it's really important that one person speaks, and the person up here with the microphone and the council. So, and let me say this: we appreciate you coming to support. We absolutely know that you support. So there's no question about that. But only one person speaks. Thank you.
The difference is that I need to get back to the state officials who have incorporated into their decision the 10-dog limit to get clarification on my interpretation, which is as long as the 10 dogs are for the kennel license and they stay overnight, and are they able to have additional dogs during the day? I also want to talk to the police department about it too and get a recommendation for you between now and then. Because as of this evening, and I just saw this morning, and Lou got it to you today, as of this evening, there is a limit of no more than 10 dogs on the property. No distinction. So that's why you can't do it tonight.
So I hear a willingness from the council. We had said 45 to 60 days. That's 21 days. That's what that is. And there's no joy in that. Nobody wants to do it that way. I hear lots of positives on moving forward here, but I hear a very limited scope in which we can work within, but I also hear all of us wanting to work and move forward here. So, please.
I also think that there seems to be a disconnect with the license, the terms of the license, and what the business needs in order to comply. And I'd like to make the suggestion that we have someone that focuses on satisfying businesses' questions and needs, the economic development coordinator, and that maybe she gets involved to understand better what businesses need in order to operate and be successful. And I think it's important that we understand better how the industry has changed from a mere overnight kennel to, I think some businesses are just daycares and not kennels. And are we issuing kennel license to daycares? And what is the requirement facility-wise for a daycare versus a kennel? And the very question you're going to look into. But I think for the next meeting, we should encourage our economic development coordinator to reach out to other businesses that have these licenses to understand if their needs are being met with the license that they have. For example, is there another daycare out there that may be under licensed and unknowingly or having more dogs for daycare that exceed their kennel license? And I think we should find that out, and if they need an expansion on their license, we should be very, I think, encouraging as a council to have those businesses come before us to get into compliance and listen to what their needs are to be able to operate as a small business in this town.
well, I think the animal control officer should be the person to do that and not Jessica, because she would know these rules and regulations anyway. So it's not to go after the people, but just to make sure they know. I believe that the 10-dog limit was on the original license when you received it. I mean, I believe
Correct.
I believe our clerk showed it to me at the last meeting. So people just, and I know, I know when people come here, might be nervous and, not taking it fully, taking it in, but we usually have some sort of stipulations on just about every license we give out, whether it's, animals or whatever we do. So I don't disagree with Councilman Tisker. I just think that the person best suited to do that, to reach out and to check that, would be Diane Gibbrey, not Jessica.
No, I disagree. I think, from a business's point of view that comes to seek a permit, often there seems to be a burden of proof put on the business to show that they deserve this permit. Well, I think the opposite should be true. We should have not an enforcement person be involved in aiding a business in clarifying the roadmap to compliance. And I think the economic development person is a perfect person to be able to sit down with the business, understand what the business needs today, what their potential growth is over the next year, and make sure that they're aware of what the road. I believe businesses want to comply, and of course businesses should know the rules. But I think the town also needs to take the role as being in the service business and facilitate the communication of what the roadmap is to compliance and make it easy.
Well,
and I
that's
think that we can do a better job of that.
So what I'm going to
Exactly
do.
why we hired Jessica, but I'm saying that there's every topic has a huge learning curve, and have somebody who's already the expert, if you will, on what these rules and regulations are from the state. I'm not suggesting that she take an enforcement attitude, but rather an attitude to help out, even if it was to meet with the economic development officer. But I mean, why would we put this on the economic development officer to know what all the rules and regulations relating to kennels are and what the future of the doggy daycare industry is, when we have somebody already charged who already knows that information?
So we're going to stop right there. These are policy points. They're good policy points, but the issue in front of us is whether or not we're renewing a license. That's what we're talking about this evening. I don't mean to be so straightforward about it, but that's what we need to talk about right now. These are great points, and we need to talk about this too. Maybe we need to review our policies. In fact, I think we do.
Right.
But at the moment, Mr. Solicitor, is there any way, if this council had the want or will to do so, to approve more than 10 this evening without
No.
being out of compliance with the consent
That
agreement?
is correct. No,
Okay.
you can't do that tonight. What I would suggest, if you're all agreeing on June 7th, is that the maker just modify the motion to approve the kennel license with 10 for review on June 7th.
Well, Andy, it was Andy's motion, right? Correct? It was Andy's motion. Would you update your motion to that effect?
Can you repeat that, Mr. Solicitor, for me, please?
The kennel license will be renewed with a limit of 10 dogs, and it will come back to the council for further consideration at the June 7th council meeting.
Could we broaden that and say, under the terms and stipulations set forth within the consent agreement,
Sure?
which
Yeah, that's fine.
translates into 10 dogs? So
That's
instead
fine.
of specifically calling out 10 dogs, I think that we want to...
That's in there. The 10 dogs is in there, so that's good.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second?
Is there any other discussion here? I can't allow everybody to speak, but certainly I can allow, if we can just keep it really, really, because we have a motion and a second to approve this, and we certainly want to take the next step there. So go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I just have two questions and then just a quick statement I want to make. The
But you need
first
to
thing
state
is-
your name for the record, if you would.
Karen Lynch.
Thank you.
Is there a distinction in the town of Bristol between daycare dogs and boarding dogs? Because it sounds like the solicitor said several times, well, there are no rules regarding daycare dogs, so I'm not sure why this is, if there's no regulations regarding daycare dogs, I'm not sure why it is she can't continue her daycare through the
Mr.
7th.
Solicitor.
Well, that's exactly what, listen, the reason there are licenses and rules about harboring dogs is to make sure that those dogs are kept in a safe and healthy manner, to make sure the neighborhood is not disturbed, to make sure a lot of rules and regulations are followed, because it is animals that you're boarding. There's this consent decree which sets forth quite a few stipulations, and I'm going to point out, there's an extremely serious fine in here also. This is not just some simple little item that a little mistake was made somewhere along the way. No one agrees to pay a fine in the magnitude that is in this consent agreement who has not had significant problems in their facility.
Sorry.
And so, therefore, this is a very serious issue. No, the position may be that the town of Bristol cannot issue a dog care license. We don't even have such a thing. However, having said that, I am more than happy to work with the animal control officer and DEM with regard to that issue, with regard to dogs that don't actually stay overnight and be kenneled overnight. But there is no way that you can have, say, 50 dogs on someone's premises, whether it's 20, 30, 15, 5, without licensing in place, regardless of whether or not it's overnight or just during the day. So.
Okay, the second question is that I'm just curious to know, this has been going on all of these years. The animal control officer goes to the, at least once a year, because we all buy ads for the Mardi Gras ball. Nothing's ever come up all these years that there were too many dogs on the property. I'm just curious to know why, this happens now, but she's never said anything all these years that there was too many dogs on the property.
Because a lot of things were happening that it's just like a zoning violation. When someone brings problems to the attention of the town, we have to deal with it. I didn't want to have to get into all the specifics here this evening.
No, I don't want you to,
people,
please.
But there were a number of things going on in terms of adoptions and no vaccinations. There were a number of serious problems.
Can I just finish my statement?
Ladies and gentlemen,
and
one more time,
all of those
please.
are delineated
Thank
in
you.
an agreement which the owner agreed to and signed.
So
Okay, can I just finish my statement?
you can, and then we're going to need to cut this
Yep.
off, and here's why.
Yep.
There's a motion and a second to approve the license. That's the only thing that can happen tonight. That's great news for approving it.
But
It's not great. I know this doesn't hit all the things that you were looking for, but we're going to move forward with this. You have a commitment in 3 weeks, and the solicitor made a really good point. This is not just in front of us for nothing. This came in with state issue. So if it had none of that, you'd probably seeing us add extra dogs right now. But we can't. It's not because we don't want to, or we wouldn't consider it, but there's some serious issues there that we're not going to talk about, and we're going to move forward. But go ahead and make the rest of your statement, and I'm going to ask for a vote.
The last thing that I want to say, and I think it's important to note, this all started because of not a truckload of diseased puppies or unvaccinated, not a truckload. There
Karen,
was 2 puppies,
I need
and
you
they
to
were
address
mine.
us, okay?
And they were my puppies. I have their adoption agreement here. They were my dogs. Donna didn't bring them in. She wasn't fostering them. They were my dogs. Here's the adoption agreement. She picked them up for me as a favor because I was away for the weekend when this happened. So these dogs were not hers. She wasn't fostering them. Nothing. They were my 2 puppies. They legally were owned by me. So when this happened, that these dogs, unfortunately, there was a paperwork issue. The puppies were double vaccinated, and there was the 2 puppies got parvo. But they were my puppies. There was no other issue. They were totally quarantined. These 2 dogs were mine. It wasn't hers. And I feel like she's being made to through this scrutiny and being made to look like she was running a hoarding situation, and it's not the case. It's absolutely not the case. I just want the council to know that these were not her dogs. These dogs were legally my dogs. They weren't hers under any stretch of the imagination. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to let you speak, and then we're going to vote, okay?
Sandra Landay. I'm interested in the point that has been raised about small businesses in the community. Small businesses, whether they're Mosaico, whether it's Hope and Ann over there, or whatever the small businesses, have their unique product. And the product of a kennel and a boarding facility is the dogs and their owners. Donna Oliva has a sign in her office window which shows out as you're waiting for the dogs to enter the facility. The sign says, "People I tolerate, dogs I love." That love on her part is exhibited in myriad ways, and all of her clients, both canine and human, can testify to the love. If a dog has an ingrown toenail and you don't know exactly what to do about it, you ask her, and her nursing background and the training she's had with Dr. Mello at the Warren Animal Facility, etc., etc. She helps you with any small problem. I could go on and on. Have all of you who are sitting here been there and seen the chain link fences around the large areas where they can romp and play, and the tarps above to shade them from the sun? And my dogs are in 3 or 4 different areas playing with other dogs. I could go on and on with these things, but the point I'm making is that dogs and their owners are her product. And she is taking care of both in an exemplary fashion. I hope that is reflected in her compliance with the licenses.
Thank you.
I just, again, Ms. Oliva, I think it's unfortunate, but I think from the beginning, this council, I appreciate everyone's comments, but we as a council, we have to take this action tonight, and it maybe a lot of people can't understand that. If we could take more action, I'm sure this council would. So I just want you to understand that going forward, that this council knows the type of business owner she is. We know the business she has. So we're very understanding and we are supportive. But right now, as the chairman specified, you have to understand our position and the law, why we're doing this.
I just have one quick comment, and that is, I'm just a little concerned with that you and your attorney has explained all of this, because Mike, doesn't usually use as strong a language, but it's a very serious issue, and how, I don't know if I would have realized it, but, knowing him for a long time, I just glanced real quickly. I could only find one reference to a fine or amount of money. I just want to make sure that for your own benefit, that you thoroughly understand this, and if you don't, from your own attorney, to sit down with our attorney who's here every Tuesday afternoon to make sure that you totally understand this and you don't get yourself inadvertently into anything that could trigger that big fine.
So there's no doubt, we're going to take a deep breath here. There's no doubt that everybody here loves your business, you, your family. I have also no doubt that our dog officer loves animals, and you can disagree, I understand that, but I truly believe that. I have no doubt in my mind that the people that work there too. There is no question that we're going to find the next step here. We have a motion and a second to approve 10 dogs on the all paws license, if I have that correct. Is there any other discussion from the council?
And we're going to review the next.
And I apologize in that we are reviewing it. That motion also included a review on June
7th.
June 7th. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item E2. This is the sidewalk use license renewals for 2017, 2018. You have recommendations provided by the Town Administrator, Director of Public Works, Code Compliance Coordinator, and Chief of Police, all to approve with certain conditions.
Based on all the recommendations, I move that we approve the sidewalk use license renewals for 2017, 2018.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next is a sidewalk alcohol service license renewals for the same time period. You have recommendations from the Town Administrator, Director of Public Works, Chief of Police, and Code Compliance Coordinator to approve with certain conditions.
Based on all the recommendations, I make a motion to approve the sidewalk alcohol service license renewal for 2017, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Just I'm happy to hear there were no complaints.
Good point.
That's good.
I'm happy about that, too.
Good point. All in favor? Anybody in favor? Aye. Aye. Great. Anybody opposed? Thank you. That was good.
The next item is the petition of John Vitkovich of 119 Hummock Avenue, Portsmouth, requests council consideration to support a resolution regarding the Rhode Island Department of Transportation removal of blue roadworks signs in Bristol. The gentleman provides a proposed resolution, and there's also a letter of support that came from the Republican Town Committee. That's item F1.
Good evening. My name is John Vitkevich. I'm from Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
Welcome.
Thank you. May 15th, 2015, Governor Raimondo and Mr. Albidi announced the Roadworks project. It's a pretty good project with respect to fixing our roads and bridges in Rhode Island. However, it does come with the truck toll. Well, I'm not here tonight to talk about the truck toll, but over the past year, we have seen an abundance of these blue roadwork signs, which Mr. Albidi and the Director of Transportation feels that they are to make us all make them accountable and transparent. Do you know how beautiful Bristol is? Do you know how proud I am about Portsmouth? All right? They don't fit. They're not transparent. They're not accountable. There are 215 of those signs in the state of Rhode Island. Bristol, you have 7. Portsmouth, we had 19. Please be advised, on April 24th, both the Portsmouth Town Council unanimously endorsed that resolution. On April 24th, the Tiverton Town Council unanimously endorsed that resolution. And on Monday, May 15th, the Middletown Town Council endorsed that resolution. There are no blue roadwork signs in Newport or Jamestown, and there's a number of reasons to ask why. They're not there. Moving forward, you have 7. There's a safety element that I want to point out. Those 7 signs were not, there was no signs where the 7 blue roadwork signs are in Bristol. We know that there's a lot of distracted drivers. I was at the traffic light in front of the police department the night that the guy hit the pole and knocked the 2 lights down right in front of me. My point being is, those signs are distracting. Now I'm going to ask everybody here. So the sign says they're under budget or they're under, their schedule. I have to ask you, what can we do about it? Furthermore, in Portsmouth, they posted up a sign that said $3.4 million for a 9/10 of a road paving project. They raised it the next day to $3.5 million. But they said 1 of 5 locations. So I have to point out that the Rhode Island Department of Transportation is not being transparent and not being accountable if they have 5 signs throughout the state that have 3.5 because they're sharing one job. I would ask this town council to endorse the resolution. Be advised, they're state signs, they are on the state right-of-way. Mr. Alvidi said to Mr. Rapley from Channel 10 2 days after we did the Portsmouth and Tiverton approvals, he was going to ignore Portsmouth and Tiverton. So now Middletown and Bristol has an opportunity, okay, to endorse, approve the resolution, give it to Mr. Marshall, give it to Mr. Seveny, give it to Ms. Donovan, and I'm working with them also at the State House to try to put some teeth so that Mr. Alvidi recognizes that we don't need, when we see the orange cones, when we see the backhoes in the police department and the vest, we know they're working on the roads. There's this thing called Al Gore's Super Internet Highway, the web. They can post all of the jobs on the web. So I apologize that my tone and my temperament, I'm getting a little excited, but I'm very passionate about the way we look. When I come down from Fall River on 24 to Tiverton, I see this beautiful sign. Welcome to beautiful Rhode Island. What is beautiful Rhode Island? What is a beautiful sign? Less signs. And if the signs were, if they were less, if they were smaller, if they were smarter, possibly. But you know what? I would like to see the 215 signs eliminated. The Department of Transportation can take them down and store them, and as they can be recycled. Be advised that I've already started with East Providence, who has 23. Providence has 35. Warwick has got 23, and I think Cranston has got 16. So I'll be doing those 4 next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So you asked the question, the signs, or the petitioner asked the question, the signs depict whether the project is on budget or on time. And you asked the question, what can we do about it? Well, I think that there's something very easy to do about it. It's call that person whose name is on the bottom, the governor, and ask her, why is this over budget? Why is this delayed? And I do believe that those signs encourage us to do so. Secondly, the towns you've listed, as far as the number of signs, all exceed those in Bristol. You said Bristol has 7.
Middletown only had 4. And the town council president in Middletown, when I said Middletown only had 4, he looked at me Monday night and said, 4 too many.
Yeah, and what that tells me is, with Portsmouth having 19, is why aren't there more projects going on in Bristol to improve our roads?
But you need a sign?
Interesting.
I just learned that now, that we have less projects in Bristol than in Portsmouth, and I'm wondering why we don't have more funds coming to Bristol to improve our roads. So I think in that manner, the signs just taught me something. So I do believe that the signs are a good step with government in communicating to people who may not regularly access the web or aren't doing that, using that to communicate. So I think I do think the signs are helpful in our town to keep our residents informed of the projects that are happening and what's going on with them.
Anybody else?
Well, when I heard the number 7, I'm trying to think where they are. I mean, I drive along 114 and 136 every day. So I'm oblivious that, I have to now go count and find them. I honestly don't know where they are.
As of March 31st of 2017, the Department of Transportation, through an access to public records request, gave me all of the signs because I asked for it again. Right. And I can read you.
No, that's okay.
You don't know, I'll go on a scavenger hunt and look.
But I also I'd like to address Mr. Andrews' comment.
Actually, just in a moment,
Okay,
Councilman Stewart was going to make a point.
I just wanted to touch on your points. Thank you for coming. As far as the signs and the concern of the rollout, and I think such as yourself and many others in the state, when that was rolled out and the tax dollars that were applied to those signs is very alarming, and should be a concern on how money is spent. So I understand one of your concerns pointed out to that. As far as the safety, no sign can go up on a road that's going to be unsafe. I mean, this is... Let's be realistic. If it's unsafe, it has to come down due to zoning and ordinances, and this is how every sign goes up. They have to abide by the state regulations and the road works, just like Bristol does with our signs.
You're being naive. There are, with all due respect.
Sir, I am not naive. Don't say I'm naive.
There will be one person
because if it was out of regulation, you would have a better fight for those signs to be removed.
There is no regulation.
In the town of Bristol and the state, there are regulations on how a sign has to be applied. So you're saying if they could put a sign and have visibility obstructed for a corner for the traffic to go, and everyone's fine with that?
I'll bring you to Portsmouth and show you the one in Portsmouth and Tiverton, okay?
That should be the complaint, so I'm agreeing with you.
It is a complaint.
Okay. As far as this resolution, I think your argument and resolution going forward should be no money going forward. I mean, the signs are already spent. The money's already spent on them. They're already up. So going forward, your mission should be that the tax dollars doesn't go with what you're trying to, accomplish here.
They borrowed $150 million last year on the Garvey Grant Anticipation Revenue Bond, okay, for the Roadworks project. To date, they won't tell us what they've said in the Providence Journal, September 28th, Portsmouth Times, Bristol Times, December 29th, and Newport Daily News on January 4th, that they're $135 each net. Do you believe that? I want everybody to just, 2 galvanized posts are $110 each. The sign is $170. Then they just sent me the invoices. The invoices they sent me last week from DOT through an access to public records request total $182,932. Divide that by the 215 signs. Each sign is $850 in materials before they put the information on and before they go put them in the ground. Agreed that they spent the money. It's still the hallmark of a beautiful state is less signs. And I have to submit to everybody, when it says coming fall of 2017, spring of 2018, I don't have a problem if they put a sign up when they're actually working at the site. That's fine. Tell us then. But when you put up a sign we have signs in Portsmouth that are fall of 2018 now. And again, Bristol will have more signs as they determine more road projects to do in Bristol. My point being, We can do better. Bristol is a beautiful community. Portsmouth is a lovely community. Middletown, Tiverton. We have so much going for us on the East Bay. I don't think we need blue roadwork signs clogging our intersections. And I would invite you to go to the intersection of Sprague Street at East Main Road and look at where the Department of Transportation put that blue roadwork sign at the Cumberland Farms. It's been hit twice already. All right, it's just a matter of time before somebody takes that out or gets hurt. And again, it's a state sign in a state right-of-way. There are no regulations. The Department of Transportation comes down and says, we're putting a sign up here, we're putting a sign up here, and nobody in the town of Bristol can tell them they can because it's in the state right-of-way. This resolution, if you approved it, the Department of Transportation says, thank you, Bristol, thank you, Middletown. I'm hoping that with the bigger cities, with the more signs, and I saw one in Providence the other day, they're not starting this project until 2018. So why should people have to look at that sign for a year and a half before the project starts? And I apologize for my tone and my temperament. I'm not usually this anxious. But in this particular case, I want to make Rhode Island look better again, and these signs are making us...
Listen, I just have a quick question, and I was wondering what public safety official has said these signs are a real safety concern? Because you talk about accidents and...
Common sense.
But you expect any public...
Oh, they're right.
Safety officials have come out saying that these signs need to come down?
Because there is nobody. It's the Department of Transportation. It's in the Federal Highway Administration. I have weighed in with the Federal Highway Administration. They're looking at a complaint that I have with respect to the signs. They also are looking into the safety aspect because the Federal Highway Administration has a handbook on signage and what's allowed and what's not allowed. Again, it doesn't get too deep on what the state can do. This is an effort from the governor and Mr. Alviti to put these signs up for transparency and accountability. That's what it was. But I don't see how a sign is accountable and transparent if it says coming in the fall of 2017 and it's put up in the fall of 2016.
Do you know about... Oh, sorry.
If I may, I'd like a motion from this council. I don't know what this council's pleasure is, and we can certainly have discussion, but I'd like a motion on the floor, please.
Oh, well, I'll just move that we approve the resolution, just for the sake of discussion.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Okay, the motion dies. Is there a new motion on the floor? If you're not in support of it, you can do a receive and file.
I'll make a motion that we do not move forward with the proposed resolution.
Is there a second for discussion?
Second for discussion.
Okay. Discussion?
So I just want to ask you, first I want to ask the police chief, if I could, when they're coming in to put the roadwork signs up, whatever administration it is, there's always some signage about projects. Do they consult with you about it, or do they just do it?
Not for the state highway signs, no.
No, okay. So they just stick them up, as the gentleman is saying. And then, so the signs really don't bother me. As I just mentioned, I don't even pay attention to half of them. But I am surprised to learn about, and I'm going to pay more attention. I've seen a fair number of them around the state. I do see very few that are in the red, so they use the green as on time, on budget, and then the red. So I don't think there are too many that they're highlighting that way. So it's either keeping them honest and keeping the projects on time, or they're not updating the signs. But I do agree with you on the ones for the future projects. There's absolutely no need to have a sign out there for a project that's coming a year or two down the road. That is a little bit ridiculous.
And they don't have the funding for that project yet either.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. Do you have any idea how many signs are actual projects and how many of them are the coming projects?
Give me a moment. There is 36 actual projects, and there are 215 signs. So deduct 36 from 215, and you have the number of I call them coming soon signs. Because that's what they are. They don't say coming soon, they just fall, okay? I want to also point out to the board that, as I discovered with the Portsmouth sign at Schoolhouse Lane and at Union Street, that 9/10 of a mile, again, there's 5 projects tied to that sign throughout the state. And my point being is, the only information that's being put on those signs when they go over budget or under budget is the Department of Transportation. It's not like there's a third-party checking agency saying, okay, what did you do? Where's that project? Where's that? We're aware of the one in Middletown that's 9 months behind project at 2 Mile Corner. My point is, I know when they do the budgets, the new state barn in Portsmouth on Boyd's Lane, I want to just point this out, the original budget was $6 million. They had to spend $500,000 to put the utilities in, so it went to 6.5, then it went to 7, then it went to 7.4. I know they're going to bring it in for $7 million, so that makes them under budget. So the green light stays on it. When the Department of Transportation is putting the information on them, I'm the only one right now that's checking on them. I'm the only one trying to keep them honest. And again, I think that there's way too many roadwork signs. Like you said, if there's an ongoing project, they're going to be doing East Main Road in Portsmouth from Clements Market to Park Avenue. That's starting soon. That's a legitimate place to put the sign.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. I'm going to allow discussion from the gentleman behind you.
I just wanted to make another comment.
As the gentleman comes up, please.
Just for the record, Mr. Vitkovich, just for clarity on our exchange about the safety, you are correct. I might not be aware of the other towns of where those sign placements. When I was communicating with you, I was referring to every sign in Bristol of the safety aspect that I see. So I just wanted that clarity sent forth to you.
Councilor, thank you. And I want to point out, sitting at the traffic light at the Bristol Police Station, the chief has it on video. I'm getting ready to take a left. A gentleman passes me as a gentleman's taking a left into CVS. The CVS vehicle gets glanced. The other vehicle, again, it wasn't a roadwork sign, but it was the galvanized pole that both lights dropped right in front of me. I'm on video. You can see me. The light dropped 6 feet. What I'm saying is we don't need additional signs to drive into. Okay, and again, the ones on Metacom Avenue concern me because we know what Metacom Avenue is like, especially between 4:30 and 5:30 when people are trying to take a left-hand turn, a right-hand turn, and somebody's getting cut off. There's a sign that there was never a sign there before. So where somebody would have an opportunity to get out of somebody's way, that sign's in the way now.
Just for the record, Chief, have we had any problems where people have driven into these new signs?
Not with regards to any of the signs. As you know, I'm not a bashful person. If there's a problem with a sign or shrubbery or anything, I'll be more than glad to address it, whether it is a state sign or federal sign, whatever. If it becomes a safety hazard where a pedestrian or motorist is going to be put in jeopardy in any way, I will be more than glad to start knocking on doors and making phone calls. But at this point, I don't have any at this time as far as the safety. All that other stuff, that's between you and this gentleman here.
So you're basically saying that about 83% approximately of the signs are for coming projects.
That's correct.
So I want to allow, I'm sorry, did you have another question, Councilman?
Wow, that's amazing.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to allow the gentleman behind you to speak, and then we're going to take a vote.
Good evening. Pete Hewitt from Bristol.
Good evening.
I didn't know Mr. Vitkovich until I heard about his resolution and his mission. And I agree with his mission from the standpoint of these signs that are sprinkled around the state. Now I know there's 215. And Mr. Tiska, you now know there were 7 in Bristol. You didn't know that before Mr. Vitkovich came here. So you've learned something. And Mary, you indicated that you haven't paid attention to many of them.
Well, I see them on the highway. I couldn't name the 7 locations in Bristol.
No, but you haven't paid attention to the signs that much in driving. So in your case, they haven't been a distraction.
No, they haven't been a distraction.
But I think they've been a detraction from the beauty of Bristol. Right. But my concern is the signs pose both a detraction from the surroundings of Bristol and a distraction to the extent that somebody's distracted by trying to read the signs, if they care to read the signs. 2, I think it's a wasteful expense of taxpayers' money. Whether it's $135 a sign for 215 signs, or whether 134 is a Mr. Aviti's very pink lens view of what the costs are, I suspect it's more than $135 a piece. We live in a state where spending apparently is not a big issue for the state legislature, and I know there were 4 Democrats in this town council, and the governor's a Democrat.
Pete, we don't do that here. That's not what we do.
Okay.
That's absolutely, you know what?
Okay.
That is absolute, no. We're going to stop right there. You know why? Because the 5 of us do not look at each other, and we never have.
Well,
I will finish my comment.
All right.
We respect each other, and I would ask that you do the same thing.
I do respect you.
Let me finish, please, and you're more than happy to make your point. is that we don't talk about, we don't look at political party when we make decisions here. That's not what we do. We never have, not since I've been on the council. Mary's been on the council a long time, and I don't believe since she's been on the council. I won't allow that. I'm sorry. Please make your point.
I take that at face value. Thank you. My point is that I believe, I'm not a big fan of roadworks Rhode Island. And I know Mr. Vikovich didn't want to get into the tolling, the truck tolling. I don't want to get into it either. But I'm not a big fan of roadworks Rhode Island. And roadworks Rhode Island is a big plan and a push by the governor of the state. And I view the roadworks signs, or these blue signs, as nothing more than a taxpayer expense of promoting the governor's plan. And I think it's a campaign promotion by the governor at my expense to promote her plan. And I think that's wrong, and I think it ought to be stopped, and I think the resolution is well-founded and well-reasoned, and I think the town of Bristol ought to send a message to the governor and a message to the legislature that we're not going to have our town citizens support payment of taxpayers' money to promote a campaign. Thank you.
Peter, the only comment I'll say is on the flip side, the governor is going ahead and she's putting sticking her neck out on this plan, and if it fails, it's not going to look too good on her. So I think it's also admirable that she's trying to make sure that we address the major problem we have in this state, which is infrastructure. And as far as I'm concerned, and we can agree to disagree, it's about government transparency, and we talk about it in Rhode Island where we don't have government transparency, and I think this is a chance for that government transparency, as long as those status symbols are updated properly, and they are. But again, we weren't part of the decision process of the whole sign creation, but those are just my 2 cents on it.
In response to your comment,
Sure.
I don't view the governor's roadworks plan as a profile in coverage on her part. All right? Mm-hmm. At the time of the infrastructure issue, Patricia Morgan, the representative, appeared who was on, I think, the House Finance Committee, went through the existing town budget, the state budget, which is $9 billion. We have a $9 billion budget for a state that has almost, maybe a little bit more, maybe less than 1 million residents. It is excessive. Representative Morgan came up with a plan of taking from inside the existing budget the $40 million or $45 million it would have taken to provide the $45 million to do the infrastructure repairs. The governor said, no, we need tolls, we need the roadworks plan to do this. And now we're talking about the possibility of spending, $38 million to provide the wealthy owners of the Pawsox to build a stadium? I know I'm getting off topic.
And here's the thing. If you look at, there are some people here that are absolutely very much in tune to what you're saying and want to hear it. And actually all of us, we're all here as an open meeting. But there's also people here waiting for their agenda item, and we really need to move forward here. So I'm going to let the gentleman speak behind you, and we're going to take a vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Raymond Edler.
Welcome.
I believe in advertising. I believe that we have a society that has a right for every individual under the First Amendment to purchase advertising to the best of their ability and to whatever affordability they have. People have a right to purchase advertising to get a message in the private sector. I also believe that to the degree we elect public officials to represent us and we approve budgetary rights to these public officials, that they have a right to purchase advertising. Advertising is not limited to the public sector nor the private sector. It is open to all. I hope that makes sense, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, could you remind me what the motion was? I don't know if it was to receive and file, or I apologize. I've lost it.
I think it was to reject the proposal.
So Councilman Tiska, you concur?
I concur.
And there was a second from Ed? Okay. Is there any other discussion from the council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed, and let me tell you why. Because prior to this information tonight, I didn't really care about the signs. They didn't bother me, and every administration, every project, public works project always has a sign about what's going on and so forth and so on. So they really don't bother me, and I think the ones when I do not pay attention to them, I find them interesting. But I am concerned that 83% of them are for coming attractions, and there is no need for that. And so that's why why I'm voting the way I am.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is item F2. This is the petition of Nancy Doby for the Rhode Island Oceantide Senior Games. She's requesting the opportunity to present the annual plaque.
It's to you. It's to you, Steve.
Welcome, Nancy. We're going to put your shirt up for your yearly advertisement here.
Yes, please
Speaking of
do.
advertisement, right.
And turn it over as well, please,
Turn
on
it
the
over.
backside.
Like that?
No, not upside down. That's right.
Oh, you can see all the sponsors.
Okay, thank you. Nancy Doby, Sullivan Lane. We are very delighted. This is our 10th year for the Oceantide Senior Games. Time goes by fast. And it is my pleasure at this time to present the updated plaque to Steve Contente. So I would like Steve to come forward.
For all the photographs, Steve.
That's right.
Isn't that paparazzi when you need him?
So happy. Thank you so much.
Yay!
It's a very prominent place.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Nancy, before you go away,
Yes, Nancy. Tell us
I would just like to acknowledge Nancy. She's here in front of us every year and gives us an award. But we would like to say congratulations to you on being recognized at the Ryan Center from the Rhode Island Interscholastic League, the 6th annual for the Female Basketball Legends, which Nancy, for many years, has been an officiating basketball games, college, high school, very involved, and she was recognized. So on behalf of this council and the town, all your involvement, congratulations.
Nice job.
And congratulations, 9 years ago, being co-founder of Rhode Island Senior Tides. It's a great organization.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy.
The next item, Mr. Chair and members of the Town Council, is you have the petition of Eliza Cohen for the Rhode Island Public Health Institute Food on the Move program. Request council consideration to permit the operation of a mobile produce market at various locations in Bristol. You have several recommendations provided.
So, welcome. Typically, this would be something like, and I know it is not in this instance, this would be a hawker and peddler's license. Why is there a distinction here?
There's
Why
a
is it all
distinction
different?
because, to be perfectly honest, what they would like to do, you generally do not allow. Okay? It's nothing that we license specifically. So the only thing that I saw when I received the petition was that it's something that the council could agree to because it's sort of a special set of circumstances because there really isn't a license for this.
We've got past history on this, correct? Or is this a year one?
I believe they already have done
right?
this last
is the
year.
second year?
So my name is Eliza. I'm the coordinator of
Welcome.
the Food on the Move program. So we've worked very closely with the Health Equity Zone of Bristol. Emily Spence is here from the Health Equity Zone, working on a variety of initiatives to reduce health disparities, actually across the state, but working specifically in Bristol around food access and healthy, nutritious food for residents across the town. We've been working with the Health Equity Zone for over a year, holding markets at Franklin Court. We were previously advised that because we were on private property, we did not need any sort of licensing to hold that program, and we've been invited by several different organizations throughout the town to hold markets on public grounds, mostly to open up the program to a wider variety of residents and provide access to people who may not be already involved with Franklin Court as an institution. So we're seeking additional permission to expand the program and better serve the residents of Bristol.
I was going to give you a 30-second commercial, but that was that was absolutely wonderful.
I think it's a fantastic program. This is really great. I think nutrition is really important, especially in today's age. I mean, we're seeing so much obesity out there, and we need to. And eating healthy is expensive. We know that, but there is ways to do it. So, Chairman, I'll just go ahead and start the motion. I move that we approve the Food on the Move program.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
No, I just want to comment that Eliza and her organization does a great job. They're one of our partners in my program, with my program in Pawtucket, and we really appreciate them coming out and being on the school grounds for parents to be able to access the food. So,
Spectacular.
Thank you. Yeah.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good luck again.
Thank you.
The next item is item G1A. This is your the beginning of your public service appointment section. This evening's agenda. It's for the Capital Project Commission for a term to expire in May of 2022. You have Susan Rabideau of 17 Sandra Drive, currently serving, seeks reappointment.
Motion to reappoint Susan Rabideau to the Capital Project Commission.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
G1B, this is the Police Pension Fund Board of Trustees, term to expire in April of 2020. You have Jeffrey Hirsch, 43 Baggy Wrinkle Cove, Warren, who is currently serving, seeking reappointment.
Motion to reappoint Jeff Hirsch to the Police Pension Fund Board of Trustees.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item H1. This is something discussed previously in November. It's the petition of David E. Barboza, 92 Constitution Street, and others. Request council consideration to extend the residential parking zone to Constitution Street between High and Wood Streets.
Welcome. Before you start, I think we can get to a very positive, fast end here. I had a conversation with the chief, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on that and give us that recommendation that you're suggesting moving forward here. This might be good news right around.
Right. And I think the memo was kind of self-explanatory. I think we need to do a little bit of work. There are several streets, starting from State Street to Union Street, that are in need of some signage, some ordinances being enacted or amended. So we're going to need a little bit of work. I have forwarded it to the town administrator, and I know he's forwarded it to you, so we can put it all together. We're going to need some help from the clerk's office, from the highway department's office. But we'll make this happen. I think we need to have uniformity from the street that I just indicated, State Street to Union Street, and all the other streets that run west and east and north and south that within that block, out of fairness to the people that live there. There is an issue. I think we can address it. There's no perfect solution to it, because I do understand that, overnight parking, sometimes there may be a friend that's invited over to stay, and it could become an issue. But I assure you that we're going to do everything we can, as we always do, to try to educate people before we get out there and enforce in any way. So I would ask that you give us a little bit of time, put this all together. I'm going to forward it to the solicitor's office with the streets that need to be outlined. And in the package, I think you've seen that there are pictures, photos of many signs that need to be updated. Some just need to be polished up. Not that they've been vandalized or anything. They've just been around for a while, so the inclement weather has created a little bit of a problem for them. But I plan to work closely, or assign someone that's going to work closely with the clerk's office, the solicitor's office, and the highway department to assure that all the residents in that entire area are going to be comfortable with what we're going to do.
Reasonable at our next meeting to have something in front of us for a potential first reading?
I think we could, we're talking 3 weeks?
Yes.
It is a busy time, a year for us, as you know. We have the college graduating this weekend, we have the high school graduation, all the 4th of July events, but I'm going to do my best to see that we can get it to you.
David, if I recall, when you were in front of us last time, part of the dialogue included, and that's why there was a recommendation from the chief here, was that the concern is that if we make residential parking signage and stickers and we do it in a very compact area, it's just going to move, and that overnight parking will happen someplace else. So obviously we don't want that to happen.
That's for sure, and may start off by just saying welcome. Last time
Welcome. Okay.
Yes.
Welcome.
Welcome to each and every one of you, because the last time I was here was just prior to the election, and certainly to Mr. Tiska, congratulations on your election. And just as a quick aside, thank you for your vote on the road signs. And thank Mr. Hewitt for just pointing out exactly what it was. It was political. You can only put so much perfume on a pig. But with that being said, thank you, Chief Canario, I've had a couple of discussions with the chief and today, and the great work that the Bristol Police Department has done. There are some residents here with me tonight. I also have 18 more signatures from residents of Constitution Street, just to reinforce the signatures that I brought in before. I appreciate everything that the police department has done. The invasion has already started. The weather is the last couple of weekends. Once again, we're getting island cars parked on the street. And I realize it's a busy time, but the sooner we can address this, certainly the better. I believe it was Mr. Stewart that brought up about Union Street, and you, Chairman, you're absolutely right. Because if they can't find Constitution, they go down to Union. So this is certainly a step in the right direction, and I thank you all, and on behalf of my neighbors that are here in advance, for moving this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll make a motion that we continue this item with the chief and the administrative's recommendations to June 7th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the, item H2. This was continued from April 26th. This has to do with the offer made by Dr. Paul Agatello to operate a free medical advice clinic for residents. I believe the solicitor has something to report.
I know this has been continued in the past. I'm going to ask you to continue it hopefully one final time to June 7th. I've been in touch with our insurer, the Interlocal Trust, as well as Dr. Agatello's attorney, Charles Norman. There's an insurance issue we're trying to work out, and I will have an update for you on June 7th.
Appreciate that.
Continue to June 7th.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the first item on the new business. This is the request of Jane Dwyer on behalf of the Firemen's Memorial and Welfare Committee, asking council support for the 62nd annual fundraiser and program book.
I did some research here, and I understand that last year we bought a full ad, which was $100, if my memory's correct. What's his council's pleasure?
I'm in support of a
I'm in
full
support.
year.
Move that we appropriate $100 from council contingency to purchase a full-page ad on behalf of the council.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Happy to do so.
The next item is item I2. This is from the Public Works Director regarding the commercial trash report for February through April of 2016 through April of 2017.
Chairman and colleagues, since Kevin McBride is not here, I would ask if we could continue this to the June 7th meeting.
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
How about if we just keep it?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Lou, since this is such a pretty report, should we just keep it or give it back to you so we don't have to make more copies?
If you want to hand it back to me and we can recycle it back to you at the time we do it. I know some of you use electronic copy of the agenda, so you're going to have it forever if you wish to do so.
I mean, I read it. I read
Okay.
it. I read it yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, but
Perfect.
well, I'll just keep it here.
Yeah,
you can just put it in.
That's fine.
paper that
We'll make a note in the agenda that it's it would be available by request, so we don't have to recopy it.
Excellent.
Make sense?
Good.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, terrific.
Welcome back, Diane.
Okay,
He's the only person here. Oh, yeah.
You're the only person there. I just felt like I had to point you out, though.
She's got the big table.
Yes, good for you.
The next item is item I3. This is from Pamela Marchand, the Executive Director of the Bristol County Water Authority, regarding the Pawtucket pipeline construction by the Bristol County Water Authority. I will tell you just for the council's edification that at the special meeting you have planned with the other town councils, the councils of Barrington and Warren, this item also appears on that agenda.
So I'm going to make a motion to receive and file, but as a public announcement, May 23rd, which is a Tuesday, in this public chamber here in Bristol, there will be a Tri-Town Council meeting with Barrington, Warren, and Bristol, along with the Bristol County Water Authority, talking about all the issues pertaining to the interconnect and all issues concerning to all the councils in all three towns.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to receive and file. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item I4. This is on the agenda at the request of Councilman Tiska regarding economic development, and you have a report from the Economic Development Coordinator regarding the baseline economic assessment and economic development initiatives.
Councilman Tiska.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess if you ask, you receive. And I want to thank Diane and Jessica for putting together this report. It's fantastic. And I think it's well done and well thought through. And I think it's, I hope, the beginning of something that we can continue to update, reflect, but then not just reflect at the moment, but also use it to plan what changes are necessary in order to reinforce growth, or if there's not, what changes we need to make. Okay. So thank you for that. And I would hope that this would be included in distribution to the Economic Development Commission as well, and others in the public and in the business community who want to look at the health of some of the sectors that we have here. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that. Also on my agenda, all things economic development, I think I wanted to address a couple of other things, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Of course.
Received a list of recommendations first from the Economic Development Commission. I think that, I believe, was at your request initially.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take a moment just to talk about maybe not specifically every item, well, definitely not specifically every item, but how we can strategically move forward to review, consider, and take action on these items. And in our packets, you have this list of recommendations, and I suggest we group these items into two groups. The first group being things that need further discussion, review, possible legal counsel, possibly feedback from our department heads, and move forward to see if the council has a desire to take on these initiatives. The second group, I think, could be made up of what I think are low-hanging fruit. Some things which, of course, should get feedback from our department heads, also the chairmen of the respective committees and boards. But some things that I think this council can take action on to demonstrate our willingness to ask, as you have done, for recommendations, receive them, consider them, and take action. So, for example, in Chapter 14 of the Town Code about historic preservation, the Economic Development Commission that we've appointed suggests that we shorten the timeline that the HDC takes action on for further review and decrease it from 90 days to 45 days. Also, I think in Chapter 14, a positive change for encouraging economic development is to change the voting requirements for on-site meetings to 3. So I'd like to propose this evening that we move forward with first readings of those town code changes, and also discuss on how we can further consider these other items within this list.
I'm open to some of the changes.
Sure.
Could we refer to possibly the solicitor to just take a look at it and just see what the implications are to that?
I actually forwarded them off to the solicitor
Oh, great.
and asked for their review. Obviously, we didn't have it for this evening, but I did ask for some input. There was a multitude of suggestions out there. And Councilman Tiska mentioned some of the, we called them low-hanging fruits that probably don't need any well, maybe quick legal perusal on them. But we definitely want to review those. So you're asking for a first reading potentially on the historic district? Is that what you were saying?
Two items within the recommendations. One is decreasing the review period from 90 to 45 days and changing the voting requirements for on-site meetings to 3. And I suggest we move forward with the first reading, then also at the next council meeting consider and review feedback from the chairman of the Historic District Commission at the same time.
So it may be, Mr. Solicitor, did you want to share something?
I can, if the council desires on those two items, I can certainly draft ordinance amendments for first reading, but it would have to be at the June 7th meeting because these are not before you tonight as
I think that's what he was suggesting,
Yes.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
If that's what you want me to do, of course I will.
Yeah, and we definitely would want, as you mentioned, we want a recommendation from the board that would be subject to that, HDC in this instance, on the HDC part of it.
So, if I may make a motion on those town code changes, I'd like to do so.
I think you just did.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Well, I don't mind looking at what is suggested, but I do have just some concerns. So I'd like to hear the pros and cons from our legal counsel, our planning department, and the board involved. For example, changing the voting requirements for on-site meetings to 3. Does that mean a quorum is 3? 3 people have to show up as opposed to the regular number? Like, I'm not sure what that means, and I'm not sure that that would be a good thing. So,
Yeah, so I think maybe if I see attending this evening is the chairman of our Economic Development Commission, and I wonder if he might expand on that recommendation specifically, but also tie in the future intentions of the commission to further review others and inform the council on how he thinks we can continue to keep up with your pace on improving this town in its economic condition.
well, I just want to make one comment before we start that, and that is that a big part of, so this is looking at it through the lens of economic development only, but a big part of the economic driver is the historic nature of Bristol. So you've got to be really careful in balancing that. So I don't think every board and commission should be viewed on just how do we expedite everything for business and then potentially run roughshod over the intent of what these boards and commissions are there to do. You have to be really, really, really careful and deliberate about it. And it's not just something to say, this takes too long. Yes, a lot of it takes too long, and there was a commission, a special committee not that many years ago, maybe like 8 years ago, that suggested a lot of ways to expedite that. And for better or worse, the council chair at the time decided to let the Historic District Commission determine what they felt most comfortable with. So a lot of those recommendations did not get implemented. So I don't know if they've been reviewed or not, Diane, in recent years. But I think you have to be really, really careful because it's something that HDC can drive everybody crazy sometimes, but it's also something that contributes an enormous amount of the tourism dollars of why people come to Bristol. It's not just the seacoast, it's the historic homes and the collection of the historic downtown area. So you have to be, I think, very careful on that.
Yeah, I think reviewing the wait period has little effect on the actual efforts towards preserving our historic
I'm not
district.
questioning the wait period. I'm making a general comment about.
Yeah, so I think in general, but regarding the wait period and the motion that's at hand and that we're discussing, could you give us some information, Diane, as far as what is the average current wait time for the Historic District Commission to take action?
I did speak with Sue Church about that, and she informs me that the current wait time is about 30 days.
So it would makes sense that changing it to 45 days still is within their comfort zone if they're doing it in 30 now, and should have maybe little disagreement with that.
I think I'm hearing from my colleagues. First of all, Mr. Chairman, he's looking at the documentation. I think it's good that your commission is actually given recommendations. That's what the Economic Development Commission is a board that should give recommendations to this council to take action on. And I'm just curious, listen to my colleagues, is it the proper process? Because we got a multitude of recommendations from your commission. So is it up to us now to pick and have our opinion? We're going to need your opinion on every single item, Diane, through community development, like it was suggested with the administration and whatnot. And I'm just curious, are we just going to nitpick and then just ask the solicitor, draft the first reading? I'm just wondering if the conversations need to take place with our boards, and you could kind of streamline what the consensus is, so we can move forward in a fashion that's going to move the town forward, and then put it forth with first and second reading and just get it done.
So, to that end, a workshop would seem, and everybody knows how much I love extra meetings, but a workshop would be very appropriate. But Councilman Tiska asks if you could just, Jerry, if you could give us a brief overview on it. And then also, there is a motion and a second on the floor that I want to take a vote on. So go ahead with that brief overview, if you would, please.
I'll
and did we say welcome? Welcome.
My name is Jerry Dotree from Bristol, and I chair the Economic Development Commission. Several months ago, the chair of the council asked the EDC to look at the town codes with an eye on, our suggestions about, from the standpoint of economic development, changes that might be appropriate. And that's what we did. We undertook the review over the past several months. I think we've reviewed 8 chapters. The overall assessment was quite positive. Surprisingly, we found that the town code really didn't need that many changes, in our opinion. The comments we provide, in the attachments you have, serve as, again, our opinion of constructive suggestions for updating the code to reflect changes in the business, regulatory, and legal environment. So again, we of the 8 chapters we reviewed, we made suggestions. We did forward our suggestions to the chairs or the department heads for their input. We got their input. We discussed that. And with that input, I think we dropped quite a few of the recommendations we had receiving that input. What you have is what we decided on at our one of our meetings as suggestions to update parts of the code dealing with, as you can see, historic preservation, alcoholic beverage establishments, amusements, health and sanitation. The town codes referring to that address fees and taxes, we are set to review now. That's a much larger ball of wax, we think, in terms of the need for data. So we're now beginning our analysis of the chapters on the town code dealing with taxes and fees, and that's what we'll be doing, come forward with recommendations on that at a later time. So that's our overview. I wasn't here to
no, that's
really
fine.
defend
That's a perfect
specific recommendations tonight.
And I appreciate the work. I mean, that going through is a tedious process, no doubt about it. I just wanted to make sure that the boards and commissions that are named are involved in that. For example, on the alcoholic beverage issue, that's more with just the council. That's your view, and then we can discuss that. But when you have the HDC or you have other departments, I'd want to know. So are you basically saying that they don't have an issue with these suggestions?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying we did forward this to the heads, got their input, and these are our recommendations. I'm not saying they necessarily agree with these.
See, I don't
Chief,
even
I
know that
there's
we...
one that says lift the cap of number of liquor license.
We don't. That would be definitely a solicitor part of it. I'm guessing that you wouldn't be for lifting the cap on that. Look at that. He didn't even have to say anything.
We need a lot more information and discussion.
But could I just suggest, I don't really know that we need a workshop on these, because each one is unless we want to hash out what our views are, but I mean, for HDC, for example, is, I don't know if we have to meet with them, I would just like to have them comment on each one of these,
Written recommendation.
these
Sure.
items.
Okay.
I think we might, if we get to alcoholic beverages, we might want to workshop on it, because, there's some that I'm not going to agree with on there, I can already tell you that, but, the others, I don't really see any major issues.
So I heard Councilman Tiska's point to be that there were some low-hanging fruit, I'm using the term again, of potentially looking at 45 days with
that's an easy
HDC. The second one, in regards to how many are needed for voting, may need a little bit more, but maybe not. I suggest that this motion be referred to the solicitor to draft these, and if it's not in the best interest of the town, if there's reasons not to do it, I'm sure you'll share it with us. Okay.
Do we have to vote yes?
Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah. I don't even understand one of them. That's
Thank you.
why.
So there's a motion and a second to refer to the administrator, the solicitor, these two items. Is there any other discussion?
Did I hear also that it was being referred to those affected departments?
The HDC in that particular
You sure
one,
did.
yeah.
Thank you for their recommendation. Written recommendation. Thank you.
To answer Mary's question in regards to the pros and the cons,
Yeah.
I think we really need to understand what that
Yeah.
is.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
So just to continue with the agenda item, if I may, all things economic development, Mr. Chairman. An agenda item, or in the packet, you have a request to discuss other priorities that the economic development coordinator is taking to stay on top of economic development in town. And I know Diane is here, and hoping that she can address some of those things. I have maybe one specific question, and that's related to online e-permitting, and what steps we've taken to...
What item are we on?
We're still on the same one.
Oh, the same one.
He made a motion in regards to it.
Nope, this is regarding economic development, discussing other priorities of the
I think
town
it's a
council
different
related to
item.
economic development. Can you tell me what efforts we're making towards
This is it.
e-permitting?
So, as you may or may not know, the state is working with a vendor to do a statewide e-permitting process for all the cities and towns to have the same system. We actually submitted a request to be one of the pilot communities. We were not selected, so we made a second request to be in the next round of the pilot, and that didn't go forward either. And so we are waiting, so we'll be in the final round, which is okay. I think it'll help us. The other communities will be learning, and they'll get over the learning curve, and they'll work out any kinks, hopefully, and then we'll be in the next round. We are participating right now, the state, in an effort to build this e-permitting system. They are going through a lean process to look at how to incorporate the other state agencies in the permitting database, like, for example, CRMC and DEM. They're in the same boat as the municipalities with a lot of paper processes, and they don't have the ability to do online e-permitting either. So I actually participated on Monday in a lean workshop, and Jessica's going tomorrow to continue that conversation. So they're going through the process on paper, and then they'll take that and work with the software vendors to make it an e-permitting process. So that's all happening right now, and we hope to be in line when they
I'm wondering if
can roll
there's
it
a disconnect. My understanding is from Commerce RI that to date, 11 municipalities have taken the initiative to train their employees, invested the time and energy to take on the initiative of e-permitting. And another 14 municipalities, in addition to those 11, are now in the learning phase.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure the application process, but the comment from Commerce RI is that sadly Bristol is not one of these communities. So if they're saying that it's sadly that we're not one of those communities, I'm wondering if there's a disconnect between our request and interest to take on this lean initiative, which I think is very important, as
We do too.
25 other towns have.
Yeah.
Is there maybe a disconnect on why we're not one of those 14 that are taking those initial steps and investing the time and resources to do this?
I'll circle back with them, and I know Richard Pimenta and I believe the fire chief may have joined him a couple of times for some workshops and training that they've had
Yeah.
to get us in the queue for this system. So I'll reach out and find out what other opportunities we can take advantage of while we're waiting to get up to speed with the full e-permitting system.
Okay, thank you. And then just finally with economic development, I wanted to propose to the town council that we consider and discuss the position of the economic development coordinator as it currently is, reports to community development, and consider the possibility of that position reporting to the town administrator directly. I think Diane's done a fantastic job in getting Jessica up to speed about what our community is all about, what's important, introductions to businesses and initiatives. And I think it might be worthwhile to consider transferring supervision to the town administrator directly.
Well, I know we had a lengthy discussion before your tenure and the administrator's tenure on this topic. We can entertain any dialogue of any improvements of the discourse or appropriation of why that would present itself, but as far as Jessica going into community development and the task versus reporting to the administrator, it did come up that the community development does report to the administrator. So in essence, that would be Jessica also. That was discussed when we were saying, does it go to the administrator?
Correct.
How can we meld her into community development? So I just want to just converse that it was discussed. But again, I sit up here. Any of my colleagues, if you have a point of, why that would be an improvement, all willing to hear.
There's also a split position with still, correct?
CDBG.
Yeah, with CDBG, so that was another reason.
Diane, I thought you and Jessica worked in sort of tandem with the community development block grant and more working together. So I thought it was I think it's a good match, but I'm open to Andy.
There's no doubt it's a good match. I think it's worth considering. Sometimes, and Diane, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, economic development and community development have competing missions. And so, for example, stormwater discharge, stormwater management. I think from a community development point of view, the priorities may be a little bit different than economic development. So, for example, the requirement of having businesses hire and pay for certain studies to be done to present it for the town hearing may have maybe a little bit of a different approach economic development-wise on the impact that has on businesses. And I'm wondering if that dialogue happens now under the current structure. And I think that dialogue it's important to have so that ideas such as, and this is just a scenario case study, maybe it would be helpful for businesses to have supplemental funding for the town for the creation and review of these studies so that the entire burden isn't put on the businesses. So, I just think that there's opportunity for the economic development coordinator position to soar around the needs of businesses. But there are times when the missions are exactly the same, community development. And that's why we see a lot of the successes. But I just think going forward, and again, there's a funding challenge there too. If it's a half-time position with CDBG dollars, that it's a discussion we should have so that maybe next budget year, if there's a restructuring of the funding, that we consider a more direct line to the administrator to work with businesses. And just to go back to the previous agenda item, I do believe that the economic development coordinator should be an expert on licenses and permitting requirements for all business, every business, and be the first stop for anyone who has a concern. So And I just think that there's a huge opportunity to build on the successes that you've had already with Jessica and do even more great things. So.
I just wanted to follow up on Councilman Stewart's comment because a couple of us, I think, on this end of the table, anyway, fought that very point to, made the very points many times during that discussion that I think we thought that the position would be best to have 2 part-time people. At the time, that's what we could afford. One focusing just on economic development and one on CDBG. And that's not how it was. It was felt that it would be better to link them together. So I think it's worth a discussion. It's just, they can be different. And if you really want to appoint person, I think I mentioned back when that discussion happened. Like if you go in, and maybe Jessica knows this. But if you go in some communities and you're looking for space, there's somebody that you can call and they will know every square inch of every building, in that city. That would be appropriate for your, budget and so forth. So, I do think that those are some of the things that we need to do. I think there was the issue of, is economic development, would that position be so much that, could that person be taking on something else? Because every project kind of ebbs and flows, and so, but I think there was some concern about that position getting sort of sucked into the planning department and not doing the other. I don't think that's happened, but I think that was our concern, right?
Yeah. So
just
Councilman
for back
Tisco,
history.
what's your pleasure on this agenda item? We had a motion.
I think we could maybe, we had a motion, a second, and a vote, and I think just that this bit of discussion is helpful to me to understand some of the decisions that were made prior to my joining the council. Okay. And I think maybe after a few months go by, we can, and as we look towards next year, get through this summer, we can discuss this again. So I would just ask that we maybe move on to the next agenda item with no action specifically on the position of the Economic Development Coordinator.
You got it. Mr. Clerk, we had a motion and a second on this agenda item, so I don't think we need to do anything else on it. If you...
File?
Well, no, because we had an agenda, we voted on a particular item in regards to this. I don't think we need to do anything else. We had some discussion.
It's just additional discussion.
Absolutely. Perfect. So we're on to I-5.
Also from Councilman Tisco regarding downtown parking.
Okay, so I'm just going to just spare you for I'd like to ask that agenda item 6, and this is fast forwarding, that we continue that to next meeting, the updating of the website, just to... I know we're not on it now. I can wait on that just to
easier on the notes.
Okay. Downtown parking. In light of, I think, the request by Mr. Barboza and the conversations that we're having relating to sort of the squeezing that's happening downtown, that's really in the context of, I think, some things that we need to consider relating to downtown parking. I'd like to ask that maybe we can redistribute the last parking study done to the council so that we can see where we left off. Do you remember what year that was, Diane?
Well, it was actually a lot longer ago than I remembered. It was actually in 2001.
Okay.
But I do have it.
So maybe it's not really worth much. But the fact is, the action proposed that we're taking with expanding resident-only parking is going to have an impact on waterfront parking and downtown businesses. I think we need to either talk about having either a study done or a workshop, a discussion to identify squeeze points. I think it would be helpful to understand what actual requirements there are that we need to fulfill. We have residents, and we're taking action, or potentially taking action on the residents' needs to have parking for them allocated within the downtown neighborhoods. We have existing needs with our current marina operations. I think it's important to understand what those requirements are, number one. Two, are we meeting those requirements? And if we aren't, what we need to do to meet those requirements and obligations within our CRMC assent to operate the marina. So I think that's important. I think we need to understand also what the existing needs are for the Prudence Island Ferry. Ridership is very easy. I think we have a great dialogue going with the operators. How many cars a weekend are parking in our in our towns. I think that's something, we know how many riders there are. I can make an assumption, 2 riders per car, 3 riders per car. How many cars are parking outside of those specific spots? Those are some, I think, pretty big numbers that we need to think about accommodating. Because the next question is, what are we going to need in 3 years, 5 years, maybe 2 years when we build this marina? I think, one of our priorities in our capital budget is to build a marina, and we continue to refine the plans. But one key piece to that is being able to accommodate the parking necessary. I suggest we figure out how we're accommodating our existing needs so that we can plan on how we're going to fulfill the obligation for our future needs. I think that's important for us to understand in the context of everything going on. So, in summary, I think downtown parking, we need either a discussion, a workshop, a study. I'm glad to hear my colleagues' ideas on how we can think ahead on some of the challenges we're going to have as the squeeze continues to happen with downtown parking.
And I think,
Well,
I think it's important. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I like what you touched on with the future needs, because I think this is where the David Barboza agenda item with the parking on the resident sticker parking dovetails nicely, because once we do a study on that and find out, hey, all right, they can't, Prudence Island parkers can't park on this street. Well, they're just going to move to the next street. And what are we going to do? Put more signs, more signs, more signs. What are we going to do when that future need happens? So I think your study, Chief, is going to point out a lot of where we're going to go, what we're going to do. I don't know what you think.
Well, can I just make one quick comment?
Sure.
I think part of it is, too, like what the signs actually say. Like right now, it's like 2 or 3 hour limits, right? No overnight. So it doesn't impact as much the restaurants and the businesses. It impacts like the Prudence Ferry and would impact the marina. Potentially people are going to be staying over. So it depends, because there are some places, like in Newport and other places, where there is no parking on that street between certain time frames. It's different than the 2 hours. Yeah.
That's correct, and you have very valid points, and I can tell you the police department always does their own little study. In 2011, we did a quick study of off-street parking with parking lots. We have access to 12 parking lots throughout the downtown area. The number we came up with at that time was 315. In 2011, we're at 351 now, and those are including those 12 parking lots that I told you that we utilize. That being said, there are a couple of parking lots that, a little further away, such as the Bank of America parking lot, some of them that have a little bit of a walking distance to some of these areas. Those are things we've looked at, and you're absolutely right. You continue to put businesses and places downtown, and these people only get here usually by a vehicle. They may now be coming in by a vessel, but they're bringing a vehicle. And if they're going to go shopping, they're going to go down to a local restaurant, a tavern, whatever it may be, they need places to park. It becomes more and more challenging. I've had this discussion with the town administrator when he was working with me, and now where he sits. Chairman Caloro and I have had a couple of sidebar discussions in the last week or two. We definitely need to look at it. I can tell you there is no quick fix, because as you know, there's not much area that you can take over and make parking lots, that's for sure. But again, we try to do the best we can. I think Mary has a very valid point. We don't want sign pollution, but we need to inform these people that are coming here on where they can park and how long they can be there.
Well, I think we need to decide what we want, too. Like,
right.
Because in some areas, it's more hectic and crazy than in other areas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we are limited, and we want to be proactive, and basically, I was going to discuss it later on, but to your point about the streets in downtown and resident parking, you brought up e-permitting, which would actually make it easier for such things that, I was going to propose. We want the tourism, we want the business, but we don't have a lot of parking, and I'm not a proponent of parking meters, but within that same sign, I know in other municipalities they have visitor passes for family members like 4th of July, so they're not going to get ticketed for spending a week at someone's house. But, that could come with a charge, just like any other license, and then they could do it through the e-web and make it easier on our departments. But other than that, we are limited. I was just going to say a nice template, and forgive me, Diane, if I mess up the name, but Gormley Witten, that Horsley, it's a H instead of a G. But, they've just concluded a study, I think it falls in tandem with the traffic pattern in our downtown area, and it alludes to parking, pedestrian, and whatnot, and they put out all the outliers of what we have existing and proposals of proactive measures going forward that, I think we have to take another look at as a template to coincide with what your concerns are with parking,
So I'm curious, our town planner, Diane, your thoughts. How can we take the next step to what may be a longer-term process to have the mechanism to make some decisions on how we can address our needs in the future?
Well, it sounds like we need an updated parking study, and it sounds like, I need to probably find out what that scope would include and what that would cost, and how, if we can do it in-house with, the police department and maybe my department. I mean, we could maybe just look at what we did before. I think a lot of improvements have been made since '01, cleaning up the ordinances. I think that was a big identified problem when they did the plan in '01, where we had a lot of confusing signs that weren't properly placed, and signs didn't line up with ordinances, and that was updated and fixed. So I think we probably need an updated, parking study, is my opinion.
Maybe we can have a couple of ideas on how to do that plan. It'd be difficult to suggest on whether it's something we could do in-house. It sounds like a great idea cost-wise, but then I'm sure there's a lot of other priorities staff-wise, and I defer to the administrator to sort of prioritize this. And maybe it's better to, instead of to spend the money and do it out of house. So maybe a couple different ideas on how we could. And maybe there's a community component to it, to doing the study and getting the study done. The economic study that you did in-house. Is something that very well could have been done by a professional out of the house, and maybe not as well. So maybe we take a creative approach to.
Yeah, we can maybe work on some surveys at least. I mean, we had done that a few years ago. We had done a survey of the businesses, because one of the things that we had found brought to our attention was that a lot of the business owners and business employees were parking in the best spots. Right. So we did a little survey to determine where employees and the business owners were parking themselves, which was helpful to inform us, to let us know. And that's, I think, when we started renting the parking lot down on Thames Street. And that was originally for encouraging the employees to park down there a little bit further away, so that the better spots on the street could be left for the customers. So that's the sort of thing we could maybe work on, too.
Maybe we could refer this to you, Diane, and the administrator, and maybe you can do some homework on it and come back with some suggestions. Not necessarily the next meeting, but in a timely fashion, and see what's appropriate. Should we do a study in-house, out? What does it do for us? So,
all right.
Would that work for you?
Great, yeah.
All right. So
thank you.
I'm going to ask you to make that motion if you're comfortable with that.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
I'd like to ask that we continue the next agenda item, Mr. Clerk, to the next meeting, and maybe that's something that you and I can discuss offline, and maybe even remove it for the next meeting.
Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, also from Councilman Tiska, regarding human services, and you have supplemental correspondence provided by the administrator regarding the Director of Human Services Program Coordinator position.
Thank you. I just want to thank my colleagues for indulging some of these agenda items. Maybe I can just ask our administrator to update us.
Certainly. Actually, before we received this agenda item, we were already in the process of making a change with our Human Services Director. He's going to be responsible for two roles. Human Service Director by charter, and he's also going to be working at the Recreation Department as the program coordinator. There won't be any additional impact on the budget. The coordinator's position was budgeted for it. He does have a couple of other roles there, evening supervisor. So he has a job description, a new job description. It was the Personnel Board helped with that. They deliberated, came up with a job description. I think you have it in your packages. But I think to what you're getting at in your item, I think we're on our way to having a person on staff at the Recreation Department that will be able to help with programming to youth and different groups in town. And that's the goal.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I was unaware of these changes that you were strategizing and implementing, and I think it's great to see that we're kind of on the same page. And really, the inspiration of this agenda item was received from deliberations and discussions of the budgeting process, and there seems to be a need to look at the structure, the reporting structure, the funding of positions in the Human Resources Department. When I say that, I mean not just that position, but when I say human resources, I think recreational, senior services, potentially veteran services, youth services, and how that's coordinated and how that's structured and what the reporting structure is and where the funding comes from. So I think that there is some opportunity to leverage some of the great things that are happening with our seniors, with what's happening within our rec department. And I think there's also some great opportunities to leverage some of the programming that's happening with our seniors and doing some outreach with our veterans that live in town. So looking at that, organizational structure, it just seems right now that there's some disconnects. And I think it would be helpful to map that out. What are the programmings, what are the initiatives, where's the leadership coming from, and where's the supervisory capacity coming from within that. And I think by doing exactly some of the things that you've just done with the Human Services Director position is going to help streamline this and make us as a community more effective at servicing those who are in need, our elderly, and our veterans. So I think we're on the way. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more with that. Believe it or not.
What's your pleasure?
So with that, I'd just like to just receive and file this item and continue to correspond with the administrator on some of the progress that he's making.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is from Councilman Stewart regarding the Metacom Avenue Center Lane Pilot Program update. That's I-8.
Good evening. I'd just like to update my colleagues. It has been talked about for many years and concerns. We talk about parking, but traffic in Bristol and the commute through Bristol, we are limited there as well. So we have a summer capital project program. We discussed it tonight. You're very well aware of where those will be taking place by big, large blue signs. So, but those intersections will be expanded and widened and improved. We recently had a dialogue with the Rhode Island DOT, myself, the chairman, the administration, all the departments of the police, community development, DPW, legislators, and sat down with the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. And the concern is, what are we going to do for our traffic solutions going forward? In the past, we had studies and the monumental, fiduciary cost to do setbacks on either north or south due to storm drains, utilities, and poles. The DOT said that's just not going to happen for Metacom, so what is Bristol going to do? And that's my concern of looking at other municipalities trying to fit a center lane through Metacom, and how are we going to do that? Again, there was discussions of can we expand a couple feet, and their conversation was, well, we have this capital project, that's a whole separate capital project in itself going forward, and where would we be able to do that, because there's a cost associated with it. So the center turn-in lane in other municipalities, the discussion came up that between Chestnut Street and Bayview, and especially at Bayview, because they're going to set a couple of those poles back, part of the intersection program, they are willing to put down paint, and the town would have to sign off, because it's going to be bare minimum by federal regulations of what those lanes would be. They're going to be legal, but they're just going to be down to the minimum that they allow for the federal highway and the state highways. So they are willing to do a real live pilot program for the town of Bristol between Chestnut and Bayview, when this project is done and going on, to put a center turn-in lane going in the middle. So it would be 3 lanes coinciding with the turn-in lanes at every intersect from Chestnut to Bayview. There are alarming concerns from the dialogue that took place of the flush sidewalks, no curbing, the mailboxes. In other communities, the state has accommodated certain residents for mailboxes to get it from the field side of their residence versus the street side. How close to the flush sidewalk would it be for unsafe conditions? That turned into a dialogue, well, we need sidewalks and curbing. And the state's response is, why would we pay for sidewalks and curbing when we don't know if the town of Bristol wants a center turn-in lane? We are willing to put down the paint to see and let the town of Bristol see if this will work. So it's an opportunity for us to see between Chestnut and Bayview if a center turn-in lane will work. I know some of my colleagues, they weigh in that they just don't agree with it, and I respect that. But my opinion is, if we don't take this opportunity and see if it does work, because the state said that if for some reason we as a town say we don't want it anymore, they will remove the paint. So they're being very accommodating to try this. If we don't try it, I'm just going to say for myself, Bristol can just keep the 2 lanes of Metacom, and we can keep the traffic the way it is going forward for the future of Bristol. So
I'm a proponent, as Councilman Stewart mentioned. I was at the meeting. There are concerns there, but I believe that it's a pilot. Well, I know it's a pilot program, and I think it's worth the try. And I believe that it is not going to get any better on Metacom. So if we continue with what we have, it's not going to get any better. So this is an opportunity to look at expanding those, just the turning lanes, so traffic can move. And if it helps that, great. And if it doesn't work out, it's paint. And we revert back to the 2 lanes that we have right now. So I think it's very appropriate.
We don't have really much to lose by trying it.
Correct.
Yeah, I concur.
Correct.
It doesn't hurt to try it.
Correct. Okay. So what do we need for this item? Is that we're all in well, I'm sorry, we should have a motion in favor of this. It would be my belief.
I'm going to make a motion that we advise the administrator to, along with this council,
that we support it.
Support to the state to sign off. They're looking for a letter from the town of Bristol stating that we're directing them to put down the paint during this project as a pilot program. With the conditions, I think the council has to be conveyed with that agreement that our securities, that we can actually remove it by our direction also, by communication with the police and the administration. But again, I'm looking at my colleagues, and they're looking at me. I don't know if you want a more dialogue before a motion is made. The state wants to know one way or another, because they're going to go forward this summer with this project. So they said that they can wait a couple more weeks, but they're going to want the letter from the town, just like we did with the intersects. The town of Bristol signed off a liability waiver with the state for those intersections for them to do surveying and being on that property as well. This would be the same intent for a liability, but to the solicitor, obviously, I would like your opinion on those type of waivers and liabilities going forward with the state on the town of Bristol's position as well. So.
I think for purposes tonight, all you really need to do is vote on a motion to send a letter to the state endorsing
from the council.
That's all.
Okay.
Very simple.
All right.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Thank you.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Mary's got it.
Is there a third? No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can, Mr. Stewart, if you don't mind, you had that pretty well outlined. I'm not sure I have everything, so if you don't mind just maybe giving me a little email with the points on the removal and the...
I could give you the exact letter they're requesting, and we can go forward from there.
Even better. Thank you. Okay, the next one also from Councilman Stewart regarding potential funding for stormwater projects for, pursuant to the Rhode Island DEM 2017 Bay and Watershed Restoration Grants.
I just wanted to advertise, along with great Director of Community Development and Ed Tanner, who attended the workshops last week. The State of Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management announced that they have $6.4 million in grants for stormwater and flooding for shovel-ready projects. And we here in Bristol, as you know, have a lot of mitigation issues, wetlands, the Tanyard Brook. And we as a council and through administration and departments said that any alleviation for the taxpayer dollars, we will ascertain any grants. So I'm looking for Bristol to be a leader. The deadline is June, the end of June, and they will be awarding at the end of summer these monies that can be attached to our projects here in Bristol. So I'm just very excited that there's actually money there, because in past discussions they were very limited, and with Washington and federal dollars, we were kind of wondering where the money was going to come from. So now that this freed up some money, I just wanted to convey it to the public that we're going to be very hopeful that we can get help with these projects. So
I think this is great. Diane, have we had success with money similar to this in the past? I don't mean the dollar figure itself, but DEM grants for stormwater. Wonderful. So we should find success again? You see what I just did there? Yeah? Okay.
You're good.
Beautiful. Councilman Stewart, what's your pleasure with this agenda item?
It's just
Maybe to refer
receive and
to-
file.
No.
Yeah, I just wanted to...
Diane to get the grant
Maybe better
going,
just to refer to the... Just
Community development,
Yeah.
yeah, to continue with this item, and thank you.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is a request for executive session, which I'm assuming we'll take up at the conclusion of the public agenda.
Yes.
The next item is from the Coastal Resources Management Council, informing the council of public notice of a residential boating facility. The deadline to request a hearing is May 31st.
Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse myself. That's my sister Siobhan Wahlberg, and Lars is my brother-in-law, so
Fair enough.
I will...
What's this council's pleasure?
Motion to receive and file.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on this is that I reached out to the harbor master, and I've asked him to reach out to the harbor commission. Moving forward, I'm asking for a recommendation from the harbor master and the harbor commission on any items like this in front of us, just to make sure that he's seeing them, and if there's anything that we should be concerned on, that he can share that when it's on our agenda. Okay? Very
Do you expect a recommendation back? Because
Not on this one, moving forward.
Right, but they do get all of these notices.
I know, but I'm expecting I'm asking for
something back
Yes.
for the agenda?
Correct.
Okay. Do also be aware, and I know, and the only reason why I mention this is that I know that the council is quite often concerned about late items. Quite often these things come in, they come in very sporadically and erratically, okay? And quite often they're at the deadline where normally for recommendations, as you know, we have a longer lead time. So there may be a problem with that just because of the way they come in. I don't know what the date stamp is on this particular one. I didn't happen to notice.
It's a fair point, so I'll keep that in mind.
So you might want to keep that in mind.
My colleagues should also keep that in mind.
Most the ones that specifically we put out this way to you are the ones that specifically are Bristol, even though all of the ones for the whole state are shared that way. They're shared with the harbor master, the harbor commission, the director of community development, the town administrator, and the harbor master.
So typically we're receiving filing these particular items, so it's usually not a problem. I just want to make sure there's eyes on it and that the council...
But I will have you rest assured that I personally put those notices in those mailboxes.
Oh, I have no doubt.
Yeah.
But I want something in writing from the harbor master.
Right, okay.
So, So there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Have you been sitting patiently all evening? Yes, I'm talking to you.
Next item is item I-12, and this is correspondence from Paul LaFleur, the chairman of the Bristol Athletic Hall of Fame, requests council support to relocate and display the Athletic Hall of Fame exhibits at the Quinta Gamelin Community Center.
Does anyone have questions? Paul, did you want to share anything, or would you? You don't have to if you don't want to. I'm happy to reread the letter. Okay, we have a letter included here. What's the council's?
And I'll make a motion that we take $1,500 out of contingency, if it's okay with the treasurer's opinion to do so, for the request by the Bristol Athletic Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I'll second the motion. I don't have a problem with it.
So the motion in a second is to support out of council contingency $1,500 to offset the cost of moving the Bristol. They're currently, the Bristol Athletic Hall of Fame is currently housed in the Bristol State House, and that will be moving some or presenting some of the trophies and paraphernalia, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It sounded negative, didn't it? I don't mean it that way. To memorabilia. Thank you, Mr. Clerk, for saving me. I think it was too late, though. Memorabilia. Thank you, sir. To Quinta Gamelin. So, and this money will help offset some of those costs. And I don't see it in here, but I understand that the administrator also contributed from his contingency fund. Is that correct? Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good luck, gentlemen. Feel like calling it in next time? No?
The next item is item K1. This is the periodic report that's provided by Alan Klepper, Barrington Director of the Bristol County Water Authority.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I only heard one aye. Is we all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you.
Again, another request for executive session, again at the conclusion of the
Agreed.
Public agenda. Then we have the individual council members' agenda items, beginning with the chairman.
I'm going to start off with a current news piece. If you've gone down Thames Street, you can see the work progressing on the Prudence Island Ferry dock. That work is a little bit behind schedule, but it is moving forward. It's going to look better and better all the time. Just to remind everybody, that was a shared cost project between the town of Bristol, the owner of the Prudence Island Ferry, which is A&R Marine, and then the town of Portsmouth. We shared the cost of those improvements because it's a shared use there. So it was very appropriate, and it was the next step that we took. That should be moving forward. There is challenges down there for parking right now. We were talking about parking earlier. I've had some residents reach out to me with some challenges, and the chief was kind enough to walk them through the process. And so we ask for your patience on that as that parking lot is being ripped up and repaired and made it safe again. So on a less positive and an absolutely disgusting end, I think, so we were not successful with the appeal. That was the lawsuit that had to do with the school. More specifically, it was the town of Warren against the town of Bristol in regards to funding for the school. I won't get into the specifics of that, but I will tell you this, is that our budget, this year's budget and last year's budget, this one in particular is the one we focus on right now, included those monies, or the predominant portion of those monies. We did use some of our, I'm going to call it a rainy day fund, it's our general fund, to offset approximately $1 million. We used $500 in this year's budget. Again, I won't bore you with the particulars, but we did use rainy day fund or savings account, if you will, to offset some of that. Why? Because we did not, this council and the administrator did not believe it was appropriate to tax people for something we didn't know what was going to happen. Well, we know what happened. We are truly disappointed on this. I am not really sharing the words and the way that I want to talk about this. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that our financial partner is going down this road and continues to go down this road. We are looking at everything, and I think my colleagues may be mentioning something here. We're not going to not look at something. We're going to consider everything, including, right now, this lawsuit says that the money follows the child, which is, in a community, we don't believe it's supposed to be that way, and we believe the law is very clear. We're going to look at the cost following the child. We're going to work with and talk with the school committee and administration. We are going to talk with the leadership in Warren, and we're going to look at everything. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at deregionalization. We're going to look at everything and decide what is appropriate for the next step for the people of Bristol. We will not put anything off the table because we have to. I've been on the council for 4 years, and this is the second lawsuit in 4 years. This is not the way we work with partners. This is not the way that, and ultimately, I can speak for everyone here in this room, is that ultimately our biggest concern is the children. So we're going to look at everything and make a good decision working with everybody. So, thank you.
Mr. Sweeney.
On a more positive note.
I love positive notes.
I work now at Chapel View in Cranston. You all know I work for Alex Anani, and passing by, I saw the Champlain Foundation, and I stopped in, and I met with a guy. His name was Tim Ryan, and I said I was from Bristol, I was a councilman from Bristol, and we were going through all the things that they donate. Now, the Champlain, if you don't know, is a private foundation that gives grants, correct me if I'm wrong, Diane, to tax-exempt programs. So Mount Hope Farm got a tax-exempt grant from them. Linden Place got a tax grant from them. Halsey Herreshoff. So long and the short of it, my point is that the reason they really enjoy Bristol is because A, it's well run, it's well managed, the funds are used properly, the sense of volunteerism in the town. So I just wanted to give this to you, Diane, but long and the short of it, I just thought that was really great stuff, and we don't hear a lot of great stuff. We get a lot of other stuff, but long and the short of it, when we're good, we're good. So we keep doing what we're doing. But I'll give this over to you on it. And I just wanted to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day weekend, and that's all I had. Thanks. Have a good night.
Mr. Tiska.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Another positive thing, I want to offer my congratulations to those students at Kickamuir Middle School who will be inducted on Monday evening to the National Junior Honor Society. So I think that is something that is to be very proud of, and we're proud of our students in their excellence there. And secondly, I wanted to also discuss the long-term impacts of sea level rise on our community. And I think we've all seen some of the reports that are depicting our coastline in Bristol very, I think, catastrophically. And I think it's important that we consider, and maybe Diane, you have some ideas on this, and at the next meeting we can toss around some ideas on how we start to include that eventuality into the future planning and permitting and review of certain things that happen in our coastal zones within the town of Bristol. So the coastline is staggering. Papasquash is an island. Much of Bristol is an island. So we have a lot of things to think about in what we do to ensure our community is prepared for the next century. So I wanted to just start that dialogue with my prerogative. So thank you.
Ms. Perella.
Thank you. A couple of things, but I'll just start by following up with the chairman's comments, and that is, I couldn't have been more disappointed myself. There's really no words to explain how disappointing the Supreme Court ruling was to Bristol. And I think many people during the last campaign, when people were talking about their taxes, we kept saying to them, well, we really have to wait and see what happens with the Supreme Court ruling. Like, we're very, very hopeful. Well, we found out just the other day what happened, and I don't think any of us in the room agree with their ruling. However, I think Nathan summed it up very, very well. But I think the point is that, if I'm correct, Julie, it's like an additional $3 million a year approximately, that we will be paying from here into the future towards the education of the kids in Bristol Warren schools. So that is something that I think, when you think about that, it's a staggering amount of money. It's not just a few dollars here or there. It's a very large chunk of money. And that is why I think we are all in agreement with the chairman's comments that we have to look at every single thing. And that, if there's some way that we can be in control of our own future and where we are, because we have been sued, we've been involved in 2 lawsuits in a very short period of time. And none of them have been started by us. And so it's a very disheartening and discouraging. I think if anybody were in business and you weren't dealing with public entities, I don't think you would keep that partnership for too long, the way it's been unfolding in the last few years. So just wanted to make that comment. On another note, the Viking Drive issue reminded me, Diane, does anybody know when our ribbon cutting for the Clipper Way project is going to happen? Are we still on for that project?
We just got our CRMC. We had to resubmit. We had a CRMC sent many, many years ago that it had to be renewed because so much time had passed. So we just got that in the mail, I think yesterday. So we are going to be moving forward. I know Ed Tanner is working on coordinating that. We have the sign. I believe the sign is in the basement of 9 Court Street waiting to be installed. So we're moving forward. We just got to pull it all together.
So we will eventually have.
Yes.
Okay, good. We didn't want to lose sight of that.
No, I know.
that event. So that was a long time in coming. And then finally, my last comment is just because we won't be meeting again till the 7th, to everyone to have a happy and safe Memorial Day weekend. And with the weather right now, it looks like we may be heading into summer. So let's all hope the air conditioner in this building gets fixed. As I look at our town administrator, no. I know it is, yeah, it is. So thank you very much.
Mr. Stewart.
So Lou, going forward for the next meeting, hopefully it's not going to get too busy, but I've been in conversation with the Director of Parks and Recreation, Walter Burke, and it was concerns from residents. We talked about parking tonight. We talked about traffic concerns. A lot of our people, especially now that we're all talking about the good weather, come into Bristol by the bike path, which is a great asset for our community. And when all these cyclists and walkers come through Bristol, it was a concern of rubbish and no access to containers, and the state won't put rubbish containers along the bike path. We here in Bristol have 6 or 7 intersect roads that cross the bike path, and I got talking with Walter of why don't we take a proactive measure if we can secure some funding mechanism through grants. He actually did say, well, it's funny you said that. I got some new rubbish barrels coming in, but I don't know if it's the conceptual plan that you're thinking. And I would like to keep it simple where it's just, maybe a cement post that could be installed by a Department of Public Works, and just a small rubbish receptacle and a small recycling receptacle, maybe round, and maybe with a chain so no one can take them. And on the day of the rubbish and recycling pickup, as those vehicles are picking up the residents as they cross the bike path, can just empty the containers on a normal trash day. Maybe I see we have the Bristol Sales along Thames Street. We have all this signage that we're very proud of to promote our town, and maybe we could get creative with people maybe coming up with a circular top to the pole to say, welcome to beautiful Bristol, help us keep it clean, and do something small like that. So we're talking about 6 or 7 posts with these small receptacles. So I'm working with Walter to obviously defer the expense because it comes with a cost, so we want to see if we could get away with doing it for nothing. That's always the first try. And I think it will give the people walking through our town the opportunity to get rid of their trash while they're walking instead of waiting to go all the way to Independence Park. And as we know, every weekend we drive by and those 2 receptacles are full to the max. And it also promotes us for keeping our town clean. So another topic, in discussion with Chairman Calero and just recently, working with and as he alluded to, finding different funding mechanisms with this news as of Friday, we as a council, each and every one of my colleagues, gives input to defer cost. And if we can have an update, Diane, for the next meeting for the solar farm up at the landfill, so we could keep the public up to date with that project that's going to save us money with our municipal energy cost savings. It was Happy Memorial Day. It's a very busy weekend here in Bristol. On the 26th, Friday at noontime, we will be having a dedication of the prisoners of war for the chair here in the foyer of the chamber. And on Saturday, they will be the Veterans Council will be unveiling a memorial stone for Sergeant Andrew McKenna at the new, and if everyone drives by Hope Street, where the VFW is now, you can see the progress of the vacant lot that will eventually be the memorial park for Sergeant Andrew McKenna. And I just want to say that we should really give a big thanks to American Tree Works for their donation of their work, DuPont's, the Department of Public Works, Walter Burke, and the Eagle Scouts and the administration office overseeing this. So I think it's going to come out to be a beautiful project. So if you get a chance to stop by that Saturday, and obviously we have the Memorial Day ceremonies, if you can partake in those.
What time is that again, Ed? The Andrew McKenna?
We got it in our card.
I know. Yeah, I know. Noon?
Time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And other than that, thank you, Mike Davis, and thank you, everybody, for who came out tonight, and everyone viewing at home. Thanks.
Town Administrator agenda items.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to say congratulations to the class of 2017. Their prom is Friday, and I hope they have a memorable and safe time. Repeating what Councilman Stewart said, we have an upcoming, at the end of the month, we have at least 4 days of veterans events, and I think I implore the public to try to make at least one of them. Bristol's always been a very civic-minded community and was always ready to serve, and I think it's a good time for us to show our respect for that. The last note I have is about the lawsuit in the Bristol Warren Regional School Department. From what I'm hearing in the community, years ago when the two towns merged and created the district, there was quite an incentive, which was very appealing at the time, and there was a great regionalization bonus. Well, from what we're learning, the regionalization bonus is no longer awarded. After the last ruling, I think we could have gotten by. We planned accordingly during the budget. We started. We weaned off the. We were weaning off the reserves. 2017 was $1 million. Last year we brought it down to $550, and we're going to reduce it even further to get up to where we needed to be. And keep in mind, we would have to pay back that 2015-16 money, $1.4 million. But we were prepared to do it. And I'm saying this as the town administrator. What I'm hearing now is we may be facing another lawsuit, according to the solicitor in Warren, from what I've been hearing. And I just have getting a different outlook. I'm hearing different things in the community that it might be time to get together, as the chairman stated, and determine, are we getting the best education for our students with the amount of money we're spending? I don't know what the answer is. Things have changed since 1991 or 92 when we regionalized. So I think it's time for us to really do an in-depth look at our school department. And if we can do it better ourselves, as we did with the Bristol School Department, I think now would be the time to do it. And I don't say this lightly, but I think the bottom line is we're accountable to the taxpayers and to provide the best education to the students that we can afford to. And now is the time for us to look at that. But thank you and good night.
Steve, can I just make one quick comment about that, just so people don't get all panicked, parents and so forth? I think it's important to note that we already pay 2/3 of the cost of the school district because we are a much larger community. So if we ever went down this route, which would require a great deal of study and fiscal analysis in terms of various bond issues, et cetera, there's most chance that nothing dramatically would change for the kids in Bristol in terms of the school district.
No.
And so I just want people who are listening to this to realize that we are already paying 2/3 of the bill. And so, we'd have to figure out with the $3 million extra, how much more beyond that would it cost us? And the elementary kids are already in their own communities anyway. So it's I think, a big issue, but it's a big fiscal issue, I think, more than it is like the educational issue for the kids in Bristol. Because the school administration, with the exception of some teacher, you know what I mean? Like both districts have to educate their kids, both towns. So, I don't really see that much changing on the everyday lives of our students, even if we went that road. And if we went that road, it would have to be a vote, and it would take a couple of years, I think, to untangle. But I do think that it is worth taking a look at. Absolutely.
Excuse me. We will take a look, and we'll take action, whatever action that is, once we've done all of our research. No, that's a good point. It's a good point. We're not one to react to things. We will respond, do our homework, and make a good decision. Mr. Solicitor.
The motion would be to convene into executive session pursuant to 42465A5 pertaining to the lease of real property, Rhode Island State House Foundation located at 240 High Street, and 42465A2 pertaining to litigation, the school district litigation.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everyone. Good night.